Okay, can you hear that? Okay, cool. All right, welcome my friends to another episode of Extreme Health Radio. Super stoked to have Mr. Matt Blackburn in the studio. This has been a couple years since we talked, I think, right? Let me bring you up on the screen here.
Feels like longer. Yeah, it's really nice to be back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's super fun. And has it been, was it 2015 or 16 you're on before?
I think it was 16. Yeah, it was at least like 3 years ago. It's so funny. I've changed my mind, as you've seen, on so many things since then.
Totally.
And we'll talk about that, right? Being malleable with our thoughts, especially about just nutrition and health and
totally
science that we think is set.
So you brought some DHA with you, which is awesome. I'm super excited. We megadosed some of that before the show.
I have a lot in my tissues, so yeah.
I'll just like drink it out of your tissues. Yeah, that was back. I think that was back when you were doing MitoLife, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I revived MitoLife, so that was like the first iteration, and yeah, the logo changed. I think just the energy of the company changed, and there's not only one product now, but 5, which is exciting. So
there's 5 What do you mean?
So I have 3 enzyme products.
Oh, I thought you meant. Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh, back then.
Yeah, I thought you had 5 products back then.
I was holding out on you. Yeah. I kept
awesome.
4 secret.
Yeah, so you have a bunch. So we'll talk. I want to talk about your products and what they do because we carry them in our store, and it's cool to be able to get behind a really good enzyme product like yours. And people have been asking me over the years, like, which enzymes do you use? So it's really cool to back someone good. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're about ready to move to the Great White North, aren't you?
I am.
That's
Idaho.
the rumor.
Yeah.
That's the rumor.
I think a lot of people there are trying to keep Californians out, but I want to do the hunting thing, the foraging thing, the homesteading thing.
Mm-hmm.
Might not get goats and go all the way, but just bees and chickens. I've experimented this year with having beehives and chickens, and those are easier than people think to keep.
Yeah.
Actually, especially the chickens, you could fully automate it where you don't even have to be home, and it's an automatic gate. And
I think didn't you have someone on your podcast about that, or was
John
that
Moody. Yeah.
Or no, was that for the cats? Or was it for the chickens?
John Moody knew a little bit about chickens. He told me they like a dust bath, which I didn't really have for them. You're supposed to build like a little almost dust enclosure for them.
Oh, okay. Oh, you can hear yourself? Okay, yeah. So yeah, if you want to just take off.
Okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Yeah, that's part of our audio issues. There's always something crazy going on. Yeah, so you're moving up to northern Idaho the middle of October?
About a month exactly from now, yeah. And just I want to go, further into water, basically just water in general, because you're really limited what you can do, especially in a draconian state like California.
Yeah,
I'm
getting
sure
worse.
You're aware of the water collection. You can get fined for just collecting rainwater, which is insane.
That's crazy.
So I'm going to have a few wells. I'm going to probably set up hydroelectric. I'm going to have a really elaborate filtration system. My friend's helping me build like a giant vortexer in like a 50-gallon drum. So I'll be documenting all this and sharing with people how to do it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's exciting. And so I'll need a UV for sure at the last step, because in wells there's bacteria, but it's amazing how water's overlooked. People think if they're on a well, then it's all good.
Right.
But you always need a filter, because all the water on Earth is contaminated, because the whole Earth is contaminated. So
yeah. So that acid rain thing, you think is real?
I think it's real. And the tricky thing is the acid rain thing is kind of like the omega-3 thing.
Mm-hmm.
So when you study like DHA, EPA, and ALA, you'll see 20,000 plus studies. A lot of them are pushed by these universities like Harvard that definitely are owned by let's just say not very nice people that are run by some interesting, sinister characters.
Yeah.
But the same thing with acid rain. You won't really find any negative studies on it, but you'll find a few like government websites where it'll say, oh, it just wipes out fish and crops and pollutes rivers and lakes and eats into brick walls and
yeah, just that, completely crumbles statues, just that. But it doesn't do anything to you. Obviously.
And that's really where, yeah, that's what keeps me going every day with health, is like these things that there's not really definitive, like Adam Bergstrom talks about like a Google search, like search engine optimization.
Right.
With Google, you have to go in the back door. You can't do omega-3s harmful. You have to do Lipofuscin or yellow fat disease horses, or yellow fat disease rats.
Yeah.
Or acrolein or lipid peroxidation.
Yeah.
And then you'll find some stuff, but there's never going to be like a definitive study. Acid rain is in all your water, so stop drinking it. Why would they do that? There's no, it feeds the cancer industry.
So why would they make it illegal for someone to catch rainwater then? Because that would be a benefit for them, right? Because you and I share a lot of the same, theories about what we're doing, what government's all about, and all that kind of stuff. Because I listen to your podcast, and you have an awesome show.
Thank you. So do you.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's just because we're both so open to things, and I think like presenting ideas and listening and learning and stuff. But it would make sense that they would allow for the collection of rainwater. On one sense, it would, because on a long-term basis, it would deplete someone's health, which would create customers. Mm-hmm. But on a short-term basis, it would extract someone and cause them to be a little bit more sustainable, which is not what they want, right?
Yeah, I don't know if they're thinking this far ahead, but if you can harvest rainwater and collect it, then if you have a filtration system, replacement filters are fairly cheap. Mm-hmm. And so I recommend, if someone's, into prepping, or if they think that this system's not going to last forever, have 5 to 10 years of replacement filters on tap, stocked up.
Right.
But, we're being pushed to buying Fiji water in plastic and aquasana. And it always amazes me when I go to health conferences and we do the water run, right? And we go to Whole Foods. And, buying 3 cases of water. And, it's either spring water with acid rain and glass, or it's reverse osmosis water.
In plastic.
With magnesium sulfate and potassium chloride, which they use in lethal injections, and weird forms of minerals in these filtered waters.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, right? I think I was looking recently into some of the Fiji water stuff, and I think at the same time you were too, because then I started seeing posts that you were doing. You started looking at like where it's bottled and all the kind of bizarre aspects of that. The
co-founder of Fiji was involved in dumping tons of chemicals. I can't remember the number, but it was a disaster where they had all this waste from gold mining, and they just dumped it into some indigenous area.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a trip. Yeah, water. Your ideas on water are interesting. Is it true? Do you think there's some aspect to the idea that, what's the best way to describe this? The acid rain is changing the pH of the oceans, which is causing the fish and their immune systems to react to that. Then worms are getting into the fish. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's something to that?
That's why I didn't eat seafood for a while. I think you saw when I went through the heavy seafood phase. And I did a good 6 months.
Your Lipofuscin phase?
Yeah, right. That's where I was building my Lipofuscin.
Yeah. You got to build it up.
Yeah, I was doing like smoked wild Alaskan salmon 5 days a week. Because when I do things, it's like, I do like intermittent fasting. I did 23-hour fast for 6 months. Because I want to see if it works, so I take it to the extreme to see.
Yeah, I watched your whole Amen Ra thing,
right.
Which I would like to get that guy on our show just to see his thinking about what he's doing, Because I like to explore all the different ideas, and just kind of look at stuff. But you went full on with that guy, didn't you?
I think the thing that I want to ask someone like him is about autophagy, because that's the buzzword that people use for fasting,
right?
Cellular recycling, right? And so they say when you.
Sorry, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
So cellular autophagy.
Yeah. So where does autophagy happen? What's the recycling center of the cell? It's called the lysosome. Uh-huh. And what accumulates in the lysosome? Well, it's lipofuscin.
Okay.
And so someone like his diet is full of it's pretty much a soy and a legume diet. And what does soy and legumes have? It has PUFA, it has polyunsaturated fatty acids.
Uh-huh.
And when those react with iron, which is in the tap water, the spring water, the well water, all water that isn't filtered, even Berkey water has some.
Right.
Then that reacts with the PUFA, and there's heat and there's oxygen in our body, and that's part of oxidizing fatty acids in the beta oxidation process to make energy. So basically, you have this lipofuscin, and it accumulates in the lysosome, no autophagy. And so,
What do you mean no autophagy?
Autophagy can't work if there's lipofuscin. It's kind of like throwing a wrench in the machine. Like it actually stops the whole recycling process of the cell.
Okay. So this PUFA or lipofuscin sounds like that's a combination of oxidized iron and DHA and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's the word for lipofuscin. Is that the same for PUFA? Is that the same, or is that okay?
It's a good question. Yeah, it's ceroid pigment or age pigment, and so it's mostly highly unsaturated fatty acids. And so in the umbrella of PUFA, there's omega-3s and omega-6s.
Omega-3 and
but
6.
But PUFA is the worst, and that's highly unsaturated. So
okay.
It's so funny that the omega-3s are worse than the omega-6s, and that's the exact opposite of what we've been taught, right?
Wait, say that again?
The omega-3s are more harmful than the 6s.
Right, okay.
But we've been told, the 6s are inflammatory.
Opposite, right.
Yes, it's the exact 180 of what they've been telling us. So, it doesn't mean that a little bit of DHA and your grass-fed beef is going to kill you, because there's vitamin E in there to balance it out. So whenever you have PUFA, you have vitamin E with it. But the problem is when we get into like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, and just eating like a vegan PUFA diet with nuts, seeds, grains, legumes.
Right.
That basically the vegan, even vegetables have PUFA. And
Coconut
you're not getting
oil.
And you're not getting any saturated fat.
Yeah.
So
how does iron play a role in that process?
So iron actually activates what are called ALOX enzymes or ALOX enzymes, and there's 4 major ones, maybe 5, but that iron actually adds oxygen to PUFAs. And so,
iron adds oxygen to PUFA. Okay.
Yeah, and so people, they think, the company kept it in a Myron bottle. It's in the dark. It's not in heat. It's protected, right? Well, but our body's 98.6. And I neglected to ask myself this question when I was programmed, because my whole life in the last 10 years, it's always been, chia seeds and sprouted pumpkin seeds.
I can't. Nut butters. I consume that like crazy.
And I don't think they're poison. It's just the extracts are poison. So when you get into, algae oil, krill oil, seal oil, fish oil, and then, especially cooking in like olive oil or even avocado oil, the only things I cook in are ghee, tallow, and coconut oil. That's it.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. So I want to learn more about this omega-3, because this is something that a lot of people are still struggling with. Like, people still think that omega-3 is the cat's meow. Mm-hmm. So you learned about omega-3, and apparently there's some studies. There's over a couple thousand studies, right, showing all the beneficial effects of fish oil and all that. And then a while back, I learned from Professor Brian Peskin. He talks a little bit more about parent essential oils. You know about that, right?
I've heard a little bit. I'm not too familiar. Yeah.
So what he talks about is parent essential oils. So he's talking about like how toxic it's a pharmacological overdose to take fish oil in the amount that we take them in. Mm-hmm. And so like Ray Pete, he says that you can get, you could take it for 30 days and get some anti-inflammatory benefits, but then after about 30 or 40 days, your body starts going the opposite way.
Yeah.
And he says that what you want to do is avoid those because it's an overdose to your body. Mm-hmm. But he says these things called parent essential oils are PEOs, which are the plant extracts of the oils that actually create the DHA or the omega-3. So then he's like, but it's still a little bit odd because he's talking about the benefits of omega-3, but it's just coming from a different source. And he is like as adamant as you can get on stuff, but and then so that kind of opened the door. And then there's a couple thousand studies touting the benefits. So then you have the opposite side. Mm-hmm. And then you look into like the work that you talk about, George and Mildred Burr in the early 1900s, promoting DHA, or they're the ones that talk about all this kind of stuff. And so unfortunately, the natural health world today is basically piggybacking off these studies, right?
Right.
And that's what everyone is sort of talking about when the benefits of DHA.
Yeah, and it's kind of like people with Otto Warburg and thinking about, the body has to be alkaline, the cell has to be alkaline, where it's actually the opposite. We need more CO2, we need more acid, to actually resist cancer. So yeah, the omega-3s were originally used as paint and varnish. So they were used to coat the walls, and you could actually paint your walls with an omega-3 supplement, and that would be a much better use of it. But it was a programming that started, like you said, in the 1920s to switch us over from using traditional fats, like Weston A. Price, butter, lard, ghee, tallow, all of these traditional animal fats,
right,
which are a lot more sustainable, a lot easier to get, over to these vegetable oils, primarily rapeseed oil or canola oil. And so they found that by feeding these oils to farm animals, they could fatten up the cattle faster.
Okay.
And so that really sped up things because the more the animal weighs, the more money the farmer gets when he sells them at market. So
right.
That was like a big shift right there. It was an industry money maker, and at the same time, it started to feed the whole pharmaceutical, little cartel.
I love that little cartel.
I guess not little now. But
yeah, $200 billion a year for just cancer is crazy.
Yeah. So I would really encourage people to look at lipid peroxidation, and I always like context with health because I think that's missing in a lot of conversation. So in the context of acid rain's effect on liberating iron and aluminum in unnaturally excess amounts from the earth, does it make sense to be on a vegan diet with no copper? Copper's in beef liver and whole food vitamin C, but it's mostly in beef liver. So and copper regulates iron. So I do my best to just kind of take a step back and see a bigger picture with health. Because you can get lost if you keep kind of trying to narrow in and get really hyper focused on little areas. I've been there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we all have.
But you have to every once in a while at least step back and say, oh, okay, iron overload, causes magnesium deficiency. You use up copper more, so you need to increase your copper requirement. How much PUFA are you consuming? Because that determines how much vitamin E you need,
and how much oxygen you have in your cells too, right?
Yeah, and the more NPK produce you're eating, the more Shilajit you need. So it's kind of
so with the produce and going back to like a vegan diet and growing your own fruits and vegetables, you're getting a lot of so we had Stephanie Seneff on the show, and she was talking about glyphosate being in the air from coming from exhaust from cars, because 10% of fuels is derived from corn, which is genetically modified and sprayed with glyphosate. So now she thinks that you're getting glyphosate in the air, and now we're breathing this stuff, and then there's the tire dust and chemtrails and everything else. So people that are growing food, you almost have to have a greenhouse, right? And then control your soils too.
I think it's a must. Yeah. Actually, the house I'm getting, it was funny. The owner was showing me the greenhouses. I was getting a little tour, and she was saying to me, I just can't get the soil right. And you must get it tested. Like, I recommend you get it tested. And I was kind of laughing in my head, like, she's really nice. And I'm like, okay, I got it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like, not to say I'm an expert. I'm like an expert food grower. I have no idea what I'm doing. But like, just to give the soil filtered water and to protect it from acid rain, and to give it some Shilajit, and maybe to bump up the magnetism with some lodestones in there that are daisy chained. Just some basic ideas like that. It just astounds me that people still water their plants with tap water, especially vegetables that they're going to eat, because it's fairly easy to build a covering, with a greenhouse, and then even just sticking a little shower filter on the hose, that would be a really practical way.
Just something.
Because
do you think there's an issue with the off-gassing of plastics with greenhouses if it's like not a good plastic?
I think there's mitigations. Like I really like the hypoallergenic air filter. I think you just interviewed David Milburn. I'll probably throw some activated charcoal packs in there. That's like a really cheap, easy way to
you get those on Amazon, right?
$10, little Sagano, I think. And I don't worry. I don't sweat too much about the small stuff, and I think Shilajit's like one of the best biological transmuters. So for years, I've been just melting the resin into warm water and then watering my plants. Growing cilantro, whatever. And the way I look at vegetables is more of like a condiment. So if I'm going to have taco night, and then I want some cilantro from my garden just to throw on there.
Yeah, just to add some flavor.
Yeah, to me that's the main use of vegetables. I mean, there's some good nutrients in them, but do I think they're essential? I don't know.
So is your diet pretty much 100% meat now, or 100% animal now, or what are we looking at?
Yeah, usually like I start my day with I'll do essential amino acids and then my systemic enzymes. Like this morning I had 6 because I have a long day. Usually I'll do 3, nattokinase and serrapeptase. And then I'll make my orange juice, and I'll drink a full mason jar, 32 ounces of orange juice.
All right, we'll talk about orange juice because I want to talk about that, but keep going.
And then I'll have usually my leftover, grass-fed beef or some potatoes, and then I'll make my coffee, and then I had some of that today. And
how are you feeling on that?
Amazing. I take days off if I'm underslept, and that's a non-negotiable. So if
days off from of that?
From coffee.
Oh, from coffee.
Yeah, like that. When I'm tired, I don't have caffeine, and I think that's so important for people to know, because
that's just the opposite of what everyone does, right?
It's exactly the opposite. Yeah, because caffeine is a antioxidant. It's a metabolism booster. It can help to boost your metabolism, and it actually acts like progesterone and thyroid hormone. And it has a lot of benefits. And I think with Shilajit, it has even more benefits. But yeah, you have to do it when you're not tired. That is the time to drink coffee.
Yeah. And why is it important for people to have food with coffee? Why do you think that's a good thing?
So so last year when I was fasting and I was doing the 23 hours a day fast.
Dude, I remember you doing that. I'm like, you're going to burn on that. How long can you keep that going? But you seemed to be loving it at the time, right?
I seem to be, yeah, because adrenaline's a hell of a drug, as Dave Chappelle.
Yeah,
Just like that, he said cocaine's a hell of a drug. So is adrenaline, and people are addicted to stress, and you wouldn't think that, right? But adrenaline is super. I mean, why do people love roller coasters? And that's what fasting is. It's a high, and unfortunately, that high is coming from your body eating itself. You want to talk about autophagy? Well, you're eating your fat stores, and what's in the fat? Well, it's a lot of PUFA from all of the fast food you ate. When I grew up, Giant Pizza King, burritos, cotijas, I ate so much.
All the good stuff.
Pounds of canola oil, gallons.
All the good stuff. Yeah.
So I think people are missing the context of like, what were you eating for 20 years before you discovered health, or maybe 30 years? Well, that's all in your fat, and it takes about 4 years to get all that out. And so when you're fasting, you have the cortisol eating at your adipose tissue, and then it's eating at your muscle as well. So you have inflammatory amino acids coming out.
So what would you say to people then who are like going to fasting clinics and reversing diseases and things? Because that's happening in certain places. So maybe it's like the context that you were talking about. Maybe for certain people in super dire situations, that could be good, I guess.
It was funny. I just saw like a Gabriel Cousins video the other day, because
I saw that
with diabetes. And he has a whole, his diabetes protocols. I think just green juice and 0 sugar.
Is that what it is? Yeah,
pretty sure. And he had a documentary on that, I think. But yeah, going back to what you said, I think I like Adam Bergstrom's like yes, no, maybe, and there's always that like possibility of anything could happen,
right,
and especially in someone's healing journey. I think you told me some miraculous stories with your family members, and things working out, and I can relate to that. And so I think there's an emotional component that is more powerful than the physical. So maybe those people that are fasting were already low stress state, or their liver wasn't compromised as much, or there's so many variables.
Oh, there's so much. Because some people are getting results, going there and healing from cancers and things. But there's like you said, a difference between what's optimal, what's good for someone who's sitting at a desk versus what someone wants to live a long time, if someone wants to just burn out early and be super strong.
Yeah.
There's context.
And I think short-term versus long-term, because I think a lot of those people, the cancer comes back. And so sometimes we don't hear that part of the story.
Right.
And so that's really important to know. I've known many people that, supposedly heal in a natural way, and then it comes back 5 years, 10 years later with a vengeance, and they actually die from it. I've seen that happen. So I just think focusing on the liver health is key. And that's why I'm so into the PUFA thing now, is because the liver has 500 functions. it's our prime detoxifier. I mean, before going to all these products, right? People go to herbs to detox, and I always get questions about, you know, how do I heal this and this and this and this, and whatever condition you have. I mean, especially skin conditions, it all comes back to that filter, the liver.
Yeah,
right?
It's not working right?
Yeah, if it's full of lipofuscin, there's non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and there's alcoholic fatty liver disease. But even people that don't drink, growing up on vegetable oils and then drinking spring water or tap water or subpar filtered water, their liver is just full of this age pigment, and the liver actually it turns like a yellowish color.
Yeah,
it's called yellow fat disease. Animals get it, and it's just kind of undiagnosed in humans. It's really interesting. It's just something that no one talks about, but I think it's one of the root causes for most diseases. Because if you get the liver working, then you can convert 90% of thyroid hormone, T4 to T3.
Okay.
That happens in the liver. So people are focusing on iodine for the thyroid. That makes things worse. When you megadose nascent or Lugol's iodine, you can actually cause hypothyroidism. You could actually create a true hypothyroid condition from doing that.
Isn't the thyroid, though, looking to grab on to some of that? And then when you supply it with the natural kind from, you know, like a nascent iodine or something, then it doesn't have to get it from external sources, which are damaging? Or it must be more is going on.
There's different views on it. I think people are mainly using it for detoxing halogens, so like bromine, chlorine, fluorine.
Yeah.
You know, but I think there's safer ways to get those out of the body.
So you don't recommend iodine at all?
I think it's the same as iron. Anytime, I mean, people are taking countless, it's measured in micrograms, and I think people are getting up to the hundreds of micrograms.
Is that the Brownstein work, right?
Yeah.
Those guys, yeah.
Yeah, some of these detox protocols, I mean, when you get into like, liver flushes with drinking magnesium sulfate, and I used to do enemas. I can't count. I've probably done 400, 500 enemas.
Yeah.
I just kind of backed off from that whole world because
I went through a whole time like that too. Yeah, just tons of enemas. Yeah,
trying to find worms in the toilet.
Yeah,
it's just, you get kind of lost, instead of just getting back to the foundation. Like, what does the liver need? Well, it needs methylation and glucuronidation. Okay, what does it need for those? It needs choline, it needs protein from animal flesh, and it needs sugar, stored glycogen. But so it's basically our battery pack.
Right.
But you need healthy adrenal function or low stress for the liver to be able to store glycogen all night while you sleep. So I've been interested in like insomnia lately, and people not sleeping well and not sleeping deeply, and I think that's the root cause of disease, just getting horrible sleep every single night.
Yeah, and then your liver's not able to function properly, and then when that doesn't happen, 500 other things don't happen, right?
Yeah. Ray Pete recommends having like orange juice ready in the fridge,
or ready for like on tap
in the middle of the night. Yeah, if you wake up with insomnia, go to the fridge, drink some milk, drink some orange juice, or just have some honey, and those are like three of the best things. Then you'll just knock out.
Now, do you do some sort of sugar before bed?
I usually do ice cream, and it doesn't work for everybody, but I'll do a grass-fed ice cream. And there are better brands, like, Haagen-Dazs is heavily promoted in this kind of community, but I think that's too big of a brand, and Strauss is a little better, and Double Rainbow is even better. That's my favorite brand.
Yeah, that's one I've seen. Yeah,
it's really good. They've been in San Francisco. They were made in San Francisco, I think, in like 1960s or something.
Wow,
it's an old company, and there's two types of gums in there, and people get all crazy about guar gum.
Guar gum, yeah.
I don't freak out. I don't think it's
what's interesting is watching your journey over the last few years. I've really seen you go and try things that are really extreme, and which is, it's funny, we're Extreme Health Radio, but I figure we're extreme compared to like the average person out there that doesn't know anything, But I've seen you go through a lot of this stuff, and what seems to be the case now with you is that you seem to be much more grounded, because it's like you'll have times where you're out, because I follow your Instagram stories, and you're, like I was telling you before the show, I don't really watch that many people's stories at all except for yours.
Appreciate it.
And you just say, like, when in Rome, take some enzymes with you, wear your glasses, you're fine. It's just chill out. And you and I both come from the raw vegan sort of world where it's like you freak out about everything. You know, I remember some people, do you remember this back in the day when some people were talking about having something in their wallet where it was like, if I get into a car crash and I'm incapacitated or something, like don't do a surgery on me or don't do something because I'm so clean that I might die because of the shock of a surgery or something.
Oh, is it iatrogenic disease or something? I don't know.
Yeah, it was like basically a letter to the paramedics saying that like don't do these things because I'm a raw vegan and I may die. You know, it's like
I'm a breatharian. Interesting.
Yeah, you know, it's like we both come from that world. You know.
Yeah, I think growing up through this phase, my dad would always say, you know, oh, the toxins just make you stronger. You know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But
yeah.
I think that whole hormesis idea, you know, people take that to the extreme a little bit, you know, too far. Like, especially people that are living standard American saying like, come on, live a little.
Right.
And it's like the next day, live a little. And it's like,
it becomes this thing, right?
Every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a balance, right?
Yeah. But yeah, you can't be, you know, health is letting go a lot and being able to travel and have some pasta, you know, if you're in Italy or your friends offer you a delicious meal. And
yeah. Right.
I guess the thing for me that I still have trouble getting over a little bit is like meat and factory farm food. Like I'll always choose grass-fed and always seek out the highest quality farms if I can't, you know, local. And usually you can, you know, I was just at Paleo FX in Austin and I had the best burger I've ever had. It was like double patty.
Yeah,
and
so
local was so good. Yeah, and it was cheap, you know. But yeah, you really have to mitigate, and that's. You know, I kind of moved away from the whole biohacking scene. I just don't like that word anymore.
Yeah.
But
I'm kind of that way too, because for one thing, like when I first heard that word, I thought it was super bizarre. And I just thought like you hack, first of all, like the body is not a machine. You know, it's not like we're a car, right? So it's like you're trying to fix a car. And then if you like biohacking, it almost seems to me like something's wrong with the physical, like mechanical device. And you have to hack it because it's broken.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, I still use the term, but it's always just such a weird term to me, you know? It's
something to like use to relate to other people, I guess, so they can like immediately get what you're talking about. But
the father of biohacking. You know, it's like
I got flack today for using my red light. You know, I have the Juve, and I've been into light therapy. I think you might have seen my journey within the RV. I built my own sauna.
I remember that, yeah.
I've been obsessed with light therapy since. I think there is a benefit to, you know, scary man-made lights, you know. They're like, it's man-made, you know, it's isolated frequencies.
Yeah,
but I received really good benefits from, you know, using just even the 250-watt heat lamps, all the little LEDs I've used, and I think you've felt the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially on like an overcast day, I think it just does wonders for the mood. And so it's like a mitigation strategy, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, in that sense, it's like biohacking, but it's just a weird term, you know?
Yeah.
It's just such a bizarre term.
I agree. Yeah, the body isn't a machine. And that's the interesting thing about getting into Ray Peat's work is it's a bioenergetic view. And especially because I'm into longevity, it's such an opposite way of how I used to look at the body as like a car that's breaking down,
right?
And you want to preserve the engine and preserve everything by using it less.
Right.
But I'm in the exact opposite mindset right now and understanding where you actually want to feed the system as much fuel as possible and get the system running as efficiently as possible to use that fuel. You know, instead of trying to restrict sugar and restrict calories.
Well, I guess there could be somewhat of a balance, right? Because Adam Bergstrom, he's been on both our shows, and I just listened to your recent one with him, 3 hours, dude. That was a good one.
It's always fun.
He talks about like the balance between the two, because like an alligator eats meat, or was it a crocodile, whatever, one of the two eats meat, but they stay in a meditative state. So like what you're saying with this kind of stuff is if you feed the body the fuel, the sugar, the glycogen, that doesn't necessarily mean you have to like go run marathons and live a super stressed life that's going to decrease lifespan. So if you feed the body all these good things, exactly what it needs to run, and then you also live a life where you're not burning all that off, then that's kind of where you want to be, right?
I like that. Yeah, it's true. And I'm obsessed with the mountain life. I was raised on the beach, and now I just love the cabin. I love the pine trees and just being in the forest. but it's a lot of work, especially living alone in a cabin. And so have you seen like Aubrey de Grey's, what is it, 7 Deadly Sins of Aging?
Freudian slip there.
Yeah, right. Adam Bergstrom talks about how 4 of those 7, I think, are it's Lipofuscin.
Of what is it? The 7
Deadly Sins of Aging.
Oh, so, yeah. Aubrey de Grey. Yeah.
Aubrey de Grey.
Yeah. I was gonna say it too.
And so, yeah, I think like lowering stress is the biggest thing for me at this point, and especially from my experience.
Yeah.
And just realizing when I was living with my family and I was very restrictive, and I was like, watching my dad eat with his mouth open, and I was just really like angry and just like
that's hard, isn't it?
Triggered all the time. And,
yeah.
They're full of parasites and all these little, but
now you're the one doing the triggering.
Right, exactly.
Opposite role.
But yeah, I think to be in a low stress state, we need to be generating ATP efficiently, is my current understanding. And so to generate energy in the cell, we need minimal lipofuscin, minimal calcification,
right,
and minimal fibrosis or scar tissue.
Uh-huh.
And so I've kind of been just kind of thinking about those 3 things, because the first 2 breed the third. So whenever you have inflammation in the body, you have a buildup of fibrin or fibrosis,
right, which
is a scarring.
Right.
That's essentially what happens in the liver with lipofuscin there.
Uh-huh. It's
all this inflammation. The tissue is going necrotic. Basically, it can't breathe. The tissue's suffocating. That's exactly what omega-3s do. They suffocate the cells, and they can't perform cellular respiration.
I remember you mentioned once, which is a really good sort of way of looking at it, I thought, about the omega-3s and doing that to the cells. And you were talking about, I think this was on one of your Instagram stories, but you're talking about how if someone were to come and just choke you, and then it just suffocates you, and that's what omega-3 is doing. But imagine doing that to all of your cells. Your trillions of cells are suffocating of oxygen, and there's a lot of ways to get oxygen into the body, putting oxygen in your bath or doing things like this, but why not get rid of the thing that's causing, like in jiu-jitsu, stop the guy that's choking you first, and then you can figure out a way to get more energy, more oxygen, right?
Yeah, I think they say there's 72 or 73 trillion cells. I think that's the current estimate, something like that.
Yeah.
I've heard up to 100 trillion. But Morley Robbins, who I've had on my show multiple times, I think you've interviewed him as well. He talks about iron, and I'm really interested in iron. There's a great book called Dumping Iron, P.D. Mangan, I think. And Morley says that iron activates the fear center of the cell. And so you wouldn't think of an emotion like fear as being associated with iron or a mineral at all.
Right.
But iron actually does make you afraid, and so it'll change your life trajectory by having iron overload.
Really?
And that's, it's kind of synonymous with lipofuscin. They're, omega-3 and iron are best friends.
Okay.
So
what do they do inside the body? Attach to each other, kind of a thing? And
yeah, they attach to each other, and they, iron is rusting. So if you've seen on your bathtub a lot, you'll see the stain, or in your sink, or even on your car, your house. Well, that's happening in you. And so, the more iron you have combined with all of these other things, the more rusting you have. And they basically form a complex. And with some other proteins, it's not just iron and omega-3s, but it's also some other proteins. And it's major food for microbes. So people think, Lyme disease is fed by sugar, and Candida is fed by sugar. A lot of these pathogens, parasites, their favorite food is iron.
Really? So one of the things you talk about is a lot of what gets blamed on sugar is really this PUFA and this lipofuscin, right?
PUFA and iron's fault. Yeah. And that's the big, I think that's what, a big plan with the pharmaceutical industry is to confuse the masses.
Yeah.
And so I remember taking nutrition class in college, and my teacher was,
I can't imagine doing that.
Promoting Gatorade and the goo gel,
Really?
for endurance runners. And I was just sitting there.
He was saying it's a good thing? It helps glycogen?
She was talking. That's the thing I'm glad I learned, because there was a lot of talk on glycogen, which the keto community totally discounts. oh, the liver stores glycogen, doesn't matter. God didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
Just forget about the glycogen stuff.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on like how they talk about how cancer cells have like 7-8 times the receptors on the sites for sugars? Is that true, or how is iron and lipofuscin and PUFA? I wonder.
I haven't looked too deeply into that, but I would assume that, or I would theorize that it's the PUFA creating insulin resistance, which is what polyunsaturated fats do. Is that's triggering that response of the cell because it's desperate. It's because what happens is when PUFA goes in, and the cell has no choice but to use PUFA to generate energy, it destabilizes the cell. And so you're putting in like, Gatorade into your fuel tank of your car, pretty much.
Yeah.
Instead of, unleaded gasoline or whatever it's meant to run on. So what that does is that destabilizes the structure of the cell, and then it prefers to run on glucose. But
the cells do.
The cells do, yeah. So it will upregulate those receptors that are trying to get that sugar.
Yeah, it's interesting because there's got to be some sort of connection there between the sugar receptor sites on a cancer cell, and maybe some sort of connection to PUFA and that. There's got to be someone who is. I'm sure Morley's looked into, or maybe
I think
Adam. Yeah.
Adam talks about cancer being beneficial in small amounts.
Like it's unwanted pregnancy, and that guy's a trip, man. Isn't he so weird? I love him.
I like he's really into like the Ripley's, believe it or not, like the extreme stories.
Yeah, you got to like bring him back in, he's great though.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun to talk to. So yeah, it's just fun to study. The iron thing is something you can go so deep into. Morley will send me articles through email, and he's been studying it for years, and there's such a deep connection between iron and copper and PUFA and magnesium that you can spend your whole lifetime just studying.
Yeah, so if you're going to talk about like the 3 most important aspects of health, or the handful of them, you're going to look at iron, copper, magnesium, and PUFA, right?
Yeah, if I work with a client, I always recommend they get the Morley, the Full Monty Iron Panel. I got it, and it was amazing because it shows your TIBC, UIBC, transferritin, ferritin, and then iron saturation. And I just saw someone's iron saturation was at 53%. Mine was at, I think, 30%.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be between 20 and 30%. And the closer it gets to, 60%, 70%, the more your chances of getting cancer. And so one of the primary causes of cancer is not even glyphosate or all these things that people freak out about. I don't think even EMFs, it's iron.
You think so?
It's because iron makes everything worse. It makes stress worse. It makes PUFA worse. It creates systemic inflammation.
Well, I mean, so much is not known. Like, how does someone's body react to EMF if they're higher in iron? Like, is there a study on that?
It's a good question. Yeah, it probably all works together. I wouldn't be surprised. It has to, right?
Yeah, all of it is so complex altogether. But what's so interesting is like you and I are both in this world. We see all the memes and we see all the things people saying, and and I think it's both of our roles to bring stuff to light that is people really doing research, and people really like Adam Bergstrom is amazing because like he I don't know how he earns his living and how he pays for his life, but all he does is just research. Just is on Google, is in libraries. Like, you want to listen to a guy like that.
Yeah, and I think asking questions. I'm really thankful for you inspiring me to start my podcast, Mito Life Radio, because I love asking questions, and it's almost more fun than getting the answer.
Yeah. For those who have not checked out Matt's podcast, it's awesome. Like I listened to probably 3 or 4 podcasts, and I was just on you for so long to start it, dude, because your information is so great, and so I just wanted something to to listen to on a regular basis. So I'm happy you started that.
Appreciate that, and it really helps to challenge my beliefs too. Especially about rigid little sciencey things. And if someone stumps me on something, then I'll make a note of it and then look into it later. But what I found is like a lot of people haven't really looked into NPK fertilizer or acid rain.
That's a big one.
Or the PUFA thing or the Lipofuscin thing.
So what's interesting is too, like I think I've listened to all your podcasts. I think there might've been one or two that I missed, but it's interesting because people will say things like, I think that one guy you had on, I mean, like all these people are great people and I like them a lot, even the people on our show. But I think it's like, it's you and I and people that run podcasts. Like I might have a guy on that promotes veganism or something or something else. But for me, it's like, I'm interested in what their ideas are and I want to like vet that out. I don't want to just live in a bubble. I want to like, if his ideas clash with mine, I want to learn more, you know? And so it's interesting though, because people will say things on our show and my job as a radio show host is to ask them questions and to bring the best out of them, and yours as well when they're on your show, and they'll say things and I just know in your mind like, oh, okay, he just let that one go. And I think to myself, that was really a good thing. Like you just let it go. And then at the end, you might just say some things, you know?
Yeah.
But it's difficult to do that because we have to live in this world where everyone has different ideas. And I'm not doing a show to debate people.
Right.
You know, it's not, you can do that in your memes, you know, in your Instagram memes and stuff.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I think Morley Robbins, you know, he's a big fan of like Rosita's cod liver oil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I got a lot of people, tons of messages to people, you know, why didn't you say anything about that? Why didn't you, you know, and he did bring that up as a little point of contention, you know, not emotional, but just, you know, he knew I wasn't a fan.
Oh, he knew that before that.
I kind of let him know, and anyone that's like kind of selling omega-3s or whatever, I'll let them know before they come on just to give them a heads up. And if you look up on YouTube, there's some stories of people taking cod liver oil and having sudden heart attacks. And so not to get too personal, but I had a family member that's her heart stopped because of a lifetime of pescatarian diet and magnesium deficiency, and so that kind of like supercharged or put the pedal to the metal for me on this research, because I think if you want to give someone a heart attack, you make them magnesium deficient, and then you put lipofuscin in the heart, or you put them on a pescatarian diet, or you give them fish oil, because that combination, it just the heart locks up.
Well, they don't even have to do anything to be magnesium deficient, right?
Right.
I mean, it's like they just have to just live.
Yeah, exactly. Or be taking a calcium supplement.
Oh, I guess, yeah, that's true.
Which a lot of people are on the the Costco multi-mineral supplement or whatever. So I used to go to people's houses. That's one of my favorite things to do to this day. I don't mind doing it for free, and I'll go and look in their cabinet, and my mind's always just blown to see, you know, the generic brands, and they're like, I buy all my supplements at Costco. Like, that's my neighbors now. And Idlewild, and they're open though. They want to learn, and so like the supplements for me are the most fun because it's kind of a big puzzle. And you can cause a lot of damage with supplements, and I think I have to myself in the past, because you can throw things off, you know. Yeah. Every mineral is connected to another one.
Right, and you're just mega dosing. It's like just one wavelength of light. It's just overkill, right?
Yeah. Especially with like vitamin D recently, it's been interesting because Morley Robbins, this is where I super agree with him. In a magnesium deficient state, which is almost everybody in today's world, taking D3, especially in the amounts that people were taking, 5,000, 10,000, 50,000 IUs.
Yeah, Dr. Circus is talking about that. Yeah.
That calcifies the whole body. So you can actually help your magnesium. You can help your vitamin D status by actually upping your magnesium. And so the way to just, you know, to settle this in an objective way is to get an RBC magnesium test. And so that's where the rubber meets the road, where you don't have to believe what I'm saying. You say, okay, my magnesium is below 4 or below 3. And that's when you know you're sick. Usually sick people will have really low RBC magnesium, and it's not serum. They have to look, it's intracellular, so they have to look in the red blood cell for the magnesium.
Now, I've heard there's different tests for looking at magnesium in the white blood cells too. Have you heard that?
I haven't. That's interesting.
Yeah, a friend of our show, Dr. Massey, was talking about, maybe it wasn't magnesium. I think it was magnesium, talking about how it's really important to get a level tested inside both cells.
Interesting.
But I've never heard that either. Like, he was the first guy.
I'm open to getting that. Yeah, the whole white blood cell thing is interesting. That's something I'm researching more with the immune system. I know copper is really big for the histamine response, and my systemic enzymes, Dissolve-It-All, that I sell, those help clean the white blood cells when they're on the battlefield. So they don't even have to go back to the liver to wash their hands. Like, the nattokinase and serrapeptase clean them while they're out there, which is cool. So I take those a lot on like airplane flights. Like, take a handful. I'll bring like a huge Ziploc bag and just take handfuls and handfuls of enzymes.
Yeah, it's super important. It's super important to take. I mean, there are certain supplements that are just critical, I think. And, certain supplements, like you said, if you're mega dosing on certain things, certain things, it all comes to context, right? Because like, if you mega dose, say for example, like you used to do omega-3, taking a full bottle at once. I remember you doing that. But if you do the same thing with like magnesium, it's a bioavailable form. It's upregulated by the cells, and you can absorb it. We're so lacking in it because we use it for everything that we do. Then that would be okay,
Yeah, and Morley Robbins on my show, he talked about, I think it was maybe even magnesium bicarbonate, but some parent gave their child a magnesium enema. I think it was the bicarbonate form, and the child died.
I remember that, yeah.
So that blew my mind. So that kind of even made me step more back from enemas, being like, whoa, it's just dangerous, because it goes directly into the system.
Right.
You take something orally, there's a little filter there. So, but yeah, what happens if you just drink magnesium bicarbonate? I've done it, a whole mason jar, and just get diarrhea for 3 days.
Yeah. Well, that must mean you're not absorbing it then too, right?
I think you're just overloading the intestines, because magnesium relaxes the muscle and calcium contracts. So that's why it's so important for the heart, is because a heart attack is the heart locks up and it can't relax. Yeah. So it's with magnesium bicarbonate especially, it's really just going consistent small doses. Like, ideally, like 1 ounce every couple hours is a pretty cool rule.
Yeah.
It just takes some discipline. Most people like to get it all done at once.
Yeah. It's easier that way.
Yeah. But what's changed my like, I just, I've flown on planes like less than 10 times in my life, and I'm getting it down to learning the routine.
Biohacking it.
Right? And I'm a big fan of Pristine Hydros. I think and friends with them, and they're awesome people, and they've created some awesome products. And one of their products is an electrolyte balance powder, and it's a stick. So it's a little paper stick. I think I even have some here.
Nice.
And what's cool is at the airport, they actually sell carbonated water.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Cool. Oh my gosh.
So you can have that one, actually.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah. And so you just keep this in your carry-on bag, and then you have to mix it with cooled and carbonated water, though.
Oh, okay. Oh well.
But I think it's smart water, and it's not very smart, but the water is the best you can get in the airport,
Yeah.
And I think it has potassium bicarbonate and sodium bicarbonate and something else. But
so you can get that all at the airport. But
the key is, you get, it's in plastic. It's in the refrigerated section, and I would say this is like the best little biohack that I've discovered in probably the last 3 months. It was a game changer for me. And you just dump it in, and just try not to look like a terrorist, and shake it up.
Yeah. Do it when you're alone.
It'll kind of fizz, and you hide it behind your bag, and before you get on the plane, and it'll get really cloudy and milky white, and then it should all react. And the reason it's done is it won't be carbonated.
Okay. Yeah.
And that plus systemic enzymes, that makes the flight so much better, because think about it, you're in a metal tube with all these electronics.
Right.
Magnesium to me is like the best EMF protection. I know we're both a fan of the Blue Shield, and I have mine on me all the time.
Right, totally.
Mobile. Yeah. But magnesium is so overlooked to protect against, calcium efflux and calcium flooding in and stressing the cell. So I'm just obsessed with magnesium bicarbonate. I think it's one of the missing pieces of health. I think it's like my foundation. I don't even sell the thing. I just promote it, because I believe in it that much. So
it's interesting because you're probably familiar with the work of Martin Pall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and how he talks about the calcium flooding the inside of the cell 1,000 times more than what it should be. And so I don't know. I mean, he talks about, EMF doing that, and opening up the voltage gated, ion channels of the cell, and calcium floods in places where it shouldn't be. And he cross-links like 200 different diseases to that, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's like double or triple that too.
Yeah, you think?
I like how Morley talks about magnesium, because he says it's 42% of the enzymes in your body are magnesium dependent. And so that comes out to 3,750 roughly enzymes. And
Wow.
the body only has 25 to 30,000. So
That's a
maybe
huge
25,000. So it's a huge piece. It's about half almost of our enzyme activity.
Yeah, but it's funny because all the research you read is like 300. Then the number is always 300. And then Morley was saying it's probably even more than 3,700, right?
And I still see, because I watch, all these little, repeat coaches and stuff on YouTube, and I'll watch, and every video where they're talking about magnesium, I'll just watch random new magnesium videos, and every one, it's like 300 enzymes, and I'm like smacking my head. I'm like, no, people only knew, because it's, when you say 300 versus 3,000, I mean, that's a huge difference. And so people neglect it, right? And they don't think it's important.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. Even in different podcasts I listen to, people, will say, you might want to add, like maybe the host will say you may want to add, magnesium or whatever. And they'll say, and just completely downplay magnesium, It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's required to digest carbs, proteins, and fats. So when it's kind of a vicious circle, because and there's all this misconception about magnesium, like even Morley to talk, and I love Morley, but all these people that talk about it, it's like sugar increases the magnesium burn rate through the roof, especially white sugar or processed sugar, which I'm a fan of. I love putting sugar in my milk and in my coffee sometimes. But if you're not in a state of stress, then almost half, I think it's like 40% of your magnesium actually gets recycled. So we have a magnesium recycling program similar to our iron recycling program. Where 95% of our iron, it goes through the endoreticulum. I can never say it. It's a long word.
Some long scientific
system.
word.
Yeah. It's basically a recycling system for iron in the macrophages. But same with magnesium. And it's just people think that they eat, they put some sugar in their coffee or some sugar in their raw milk and they're going to die and it's going to deplete their magnesium and all this stuff. Sugar is a sedative. It's actually a de-stressor for the system. And you don't have to go to the extreme with white sugar, but don't be afraid of raw honey. Fructose doesn't require insulin, and there's potassium in honey, which has insulin-like effects. So diabetics have actually used honey to help with that condition.
I know, I've heard that. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's completely opposite what you think.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm a big fan of beekeeping. I learned how to use a bee suit really well. I know how to use the smoker. But
I've watched your stories on that.
They get up under they can squeeze in I think it's like 1/16 of an inch or something. They can really squeeze in there in really tight spaces.
That's crazy.
So I got stung in my ankle, had some nice rashes, and then had a nice sore jaw for 3 weeks. It caused a nice detox reaction. I have some friends using
Apitherapy?
For their Lyme. And
oh, really?
The Tonic Treasures people, Sar and Gala.
No way.
They're doing like 20 stings in their back.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I felt a mental boost when I got stung in the neck, for sure. That was a good day.
That was good. It's interesting. It's funny being in this world, right? Because like we see so many different points of view, like I feel like you and I have a similar journey. Like we're seeing the same stuff and we're hearing the same people, somewhat, right? And there's so many different points of view, and you realize like for certain people like Morley Robbins or Adam Bergstrom or whatever, like you see parts of their like holes missing in every person, and I'm sure there's holes missing within us too.
Yeah, for sure.
But for you and me to try to put things together and to because like the average person doesn't even know about the light thing, or the average health person is like, why is light bad, and so putting everything together it's an interesting thing, isn't it? Putting all the pieces together.
It's challenging. Yeah, one of the questions I get the most from people is, where do I start? And I'm sure you get that as well.
Totally.
And I have a million answers for that.
Depends
on
a lot.
But I get some flack a lot from people when they're like, you speak in absolutes a lot. I think Star Wars programming, like, are you a Sith, Matt? You speak in absolutes. It's like blanket statements,
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of absolutes and blanket statements to be made. Just looking at like you were talking about glyphosate. I mean, is it a blanket statement to say that everyone has glyphosate poisoning if it's in the gasoline? It's
if we're breathing it, right?
Right. I mean, it's everybody, right? Everyone's exposed. That's an absolute, right?
Right.
So
it's challenging though too on the flip side of that, because there's so many cellular interactions and enzymatic reactions going on. I feel like for everything that we know, we still know like 1% of what's going on. So it's hard to speak in absolutes, but you can almost absolutely say that everyone's magnesium deficient.
yeah,
right? Certain things we know.
And before we started recording, we were just talking about our gelatin, and I brought some marshmallows for Justin, and I think just recently, I think it was like the last 5 years, I learned about the gelatin glycine thing. How glyphosate is like glyphosate is a glycine analog.
Right.
And I think Morley has some interesting stuff on that too. And yeah, how many people are actually taking 20-30 grams of glycine a day? I've even heard of 50 grams of glycine a day, like high dosing, like Great Lakes gelatin or marshmallows or gummy bears or bone broth, ideally homemade. I almost want to start like a gummy bear company, because I grew up with those things, and unfortunately, like, is it Haribo? Those have all these food colorings in them.
Yeah, I remember that.
Even the healthy ones, they have sunflour oil, like the ones you see at Sprouts.
Right,
it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
I get sick to my stomach when I eat those.
Yeah, you can't do that. Or like Jell-O, I mean, you can't do that too much.
But I think, people overlook, I mean, sugar and gelatin together, I mean, that's a killer combo in a good way for like a hike, if you can make something at home.
Why do you do the gelatin with the beef?
So like bone broth with beef, or
to offset it. Like, why do you do that?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So muscle meat contains inflammatory amino acids, and I guess the carnivore people would, Sean Baker or Paul Saladino probably disagree with this, but that it's inflammatory, and so you have these amino acids that create an inflammatory response. So there are inflammatory amino acids, and there are some non-inflammatory amino acids.
Okay.
And they say there's anywhere from 20 to 22.
Why would Sean disagree with that?
He eats only muscle meats, and he doesn't do any bone broth, to my knowledge. So he just does. He
does eggs and dairy, right?
Yeah.
I saw that, but I don't think he does any bone broth. But why would he disagree with the science that there are 22 or a certain amount of inflammatory amino acids?
Maybe the effect that they have. Just studying Ray Peat's work, it's my understanding that without the glycine and the proline and all the things that are in gelatin, it's like the complex of the hydroxyproline, proline, and glycine. I think those are the major ones.
Those are the major inflammatory ones.
Non-inflammatory.
Okay.
That are in like soup mix bones and marrow bones and bone broth or gelatin or collagen.
Okay.
And so if you can. It goes back to the idea that we used to consume the whole animal instead of just isolated parts of it all the time. Yeah. So it's kind of like
is Sean, what kind of doctor is he, by the way? Do you know?
I'm not sure. Yeah, he used to be a surgeon in Iraq, I think.
Was he?
Yeah, I follow him pretty closely because I like the carnivore people. I'm not like anti.
Yeah.
I think they're more on it than the vegans for sure.
Yeah.
I think it's more sustainable, but they're going to burn out unless they do honey and milk,
Well, I'm with you because I don't like to really fit into any camp, I don't know. I just see weirdness in every camp, But so with Sean, he's only eating the muscle meat. He doesn't do any like organ meats?
Yeah, I actually watched some of his lives just for fun, and he says organ meats aren't necessary. To me, beef liver in the context of what we're dealing with, like Morley says, a football field, red blood cell football field of iron, and then 90 milligrams of copper to regulate that entire field. And that's 4 pennies that's supposed to regulate that entire field, but they've whittled it down to 1 penny or less than 1 because of glyphosate and pharmaceuticals. No copper in the soil, no copper in the plants, no copper in the animals, no copper in us. So copper gets concentrated in the liver just like vitamin A does, retinol. And so beef liver to me is like a non-negotiable everyone should be, and it doesn't have to be beef, you know, it could be lamb liver or
Right.
a different animal.
Yeah.
A lot of people do chicken liver.
Yeah.
Other than that, whole food vitamin C, like I like camu berries and elderberries. I think berries are one of the best sources of copper, because with that vitamin C, you have J factors, you have P factors, you have copper, tyrosine. It's like a complex.
Yeah.
And ascorbic acid is just one part of it. And so growing up like I did on Emergency, that product, that really causes iron dysregulation, because that ascorbic acid really screws with not only copper but the enzymes that are copper dependent. So any enzyme that ends in oxidase, so like monoamine oxidase,
right,
like things that make our mood, A and B, and all of ferrooxidase, which regulates iron, and ceruloplasmin, and all these. It's like there's so many enzymes that are copper dependent. It's insane. And so I think there's not enough in, you know, just beef, you know, just the muscle meat.
You got to hyper concentrate it from the liver.
Or from fruit.
From fruit, yeah. It's funny because Adam Bergstrom doesn't like vitamin C. He's not a big fan of it, which is interesting, right?
Doesn't he do fruit or no?
He does fruit, but it's funny because he does a lot of things that are like, you know, he'll eat, like nuts every morning and things, but for specific reasons, like he's 2 almonds or like, you know, 2 walnuts. Yeah. But yeah, I remember he was talking about how he would be getting sick and he would take some vitamin C and he would get sicker, and then he would stop taking the vitamin C and then he would get better. I was like, you know how he is. He's like always the opposite of everyone, the contrarian.
He might have been referring to the way that other people refer to vitamin C as ascorbic acid.
You think he was talking about that?
Maybe as like, you know, maybe he was kind of making a joke in a way or something, or talking indirectly, because there's this woman on Facebook, Doris Lowe, that you might want to have on.
Oh, I've already reached out to her.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Yeah, she's really interesting, and I think that's like the next big debate in the health community is ascorbic acid versus vitamin C.
Yeah.
And it seems like such a small thing to talk about, but it is important, because you have these 2 camps, one saying ascorbic acid is C, and then another camp, which I think I'm in, it's more than that. It's a complex where you have copper and tyrosine and J factors and like.
So what is she saying? There's some difference between the 2, right?
No, she's saying just take supplemental AA. You know, she calls it AA. She refers to it a lot. Ascorbic acid.
Okay.
In high amounts. And she says, "Did you have your AA today?" Is like a little phrase.
Yeah, I've seen her.
And it just doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I guess I can't really speak because I take essential amino acids, you know, which are better than BCAAs, and they're fun. It's the ADAs.
Right.
I've taken those for years, and I feel and see a difference. But, you know, it's a super synthetic extract. But I think this is different because it's my understanding that when you take ascorbic acid in isolation, like the Emergency product,
or maybe like Live On Labs or something.
Yeah. It's gonna actually need to. It's going to need to become whole in your body. I mean, that's my understanding. And so it's going to actually find the copper, the little copper that you have, and then take it to form the whole complex. So, yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm way off with the biochemistry, but it seems like Adam Bergstrom and Ray Peat are really against ascorbic acid. So
yeah, it's interesting, huh?
Yeah, I can just say that when I used to take ascorbic acid when I was sick, like I used to get sore throats all the time, and I think I was iron poisoned. I think that was the main reason why I was sick all the time.
I think so.
And I mean, look, I rarely get sick now. I rarely have an immune system hit, and I think it is, you know, taking a lot of copper to regulate my iron. Like on the way here, I was eating beef liver bites. I've been obsessed with these Epic.
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, they're not in the store, so you have to order them only online.
No way. Okay.
And you know, beef liver is so hard to stomach. You know, I've almost thrown up trying to eat it.
It's not easy.
Yeah, you could overcook it, and then it's like chewing like a tire. Yeah. And so the easiest ways that I recommend for people to get beef liver, and it works, is desiccated beef liver capsules, like Ancestral Supplements.
Yeah, I love those.
And those are my bane too.
Yeah.
You know, but some websites sell, you can buy beef liver combined with meat. And so I think some of the websites that, the Honest Bison, they have like bison liver with
the
meat in a blend.
Interesting. In capsules or the actual?
The actual. And so the whole idea is like when you're cooking ground bison, you won't taste it. So if you have some heart and some liver in there, maybe it's 10%.
Yeah.
I haven't had heart yet, but I just focus on liver and thyroid. I think those are the two most important ones, two most important organs to get. And I tend to cycle the thyroid hormone. But
Do you see yourself changing your diet? I'm sure you do over time. But do you see yourself going back to any sort of vegan or any kind of thing like that?
I can't, just with the way that I feel on animal protein. And I took it as far as you can go with getting sufficient protein on a vegetarian diet. Mm-hmm. Like I was doing tons of raw goat's milk, tons of eggs. I was doing some cheese. I was doing essential amino acids. I was doing royal jelly. Mm-hmm. But I just really think there's no substitute for muscle meat. And I just like to think now in a more ancestral way, like what my ancestors used to eat. Mm-hmm. And I'm 97% European. And so my ancestors are mostly eating probably meat and dairy.
Yeah.
And so I just feel the difference mentally, physically. I feel more grounded. I feel less stressed. And I think that's what a lot of the fruitarians are missing. Like they have the sugar piece down, but they're just missing the protein because the liver needs good quality proteins to function. Like Dr. Cassingham, he has a book called The Body Shape Diet.
Yeah.
I love, my favorite part is he says strong, intermediate, and weak proteins. And he has a list of foods on there.
He is a fireball, isn't he?
He's a fireball.
Yeah, he's so funny.
And it's all animal products, and I guess people just don't think that, it's the ratio of proteins. And it's the form of the proteins, and it's so complex. Like we can't. I'm sure you've been following the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Meat, and they're trying to shove this pea protein isolate on us, and it's like that's supposed to be comparable to, one ingredient grass-fed beef.
I don't know. I see a lot of their stuff, and I follow their stuff, but I don't follow anyone who thinks that's a good idea. Do you? Do you see people talking about like they love it and all that?
Yeah,
I see it's out there.
I think it's going to flop. I mean, I think the alternative health community is divided as it is.
Yeah.
It all, like the one thing it kind of agrees on from what I've seen is that it's pretty toxic.
Didn't Bill Gates invest in that or something? He did, right?
Yeah, I think. And I'm trying to think.
Smart dude.
And also
smart for what he's doing.
Yeah. Also a guy from Saudi Arabia, like a really, really wealthy guy with like a mansion with, 100 slaves in there working, and
really
is like, I think it might've been Dubai or something.
Wow.
So yeah, my friend Tristan Haggard, I think you might've heard, we had an awesome talk with him. He has Primal Edge Health, and he's one of my favorite people to listen to because he's connected the transhumanism movement with the vegan movement.
Yeah.
With the depopulation.
That was a good episode.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really good episode. He's cool. He's living down in Ecuador, right?
Yeah.
He's been there for like 10 years though, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So he's connected. Yeah. So in that episode, he talked about the connection between transhumanism with it, which is huge right now. Everyone is trying to get technology connected to us. And it's like, I don't know. I see it everywhere, especially on super popular podcasts. It's crazy.
Yeah, I almost cried recently because my mom was saying my brother got into VR, but then I learned that it was the corded one, so I was like a little less freaked out. But he was just like testing it out or something.
Wow.
But the VR that freaks me out, I've done it once, was the separate, where it's the phone strapped to your face, blue light and EMFs right to your dome. It's
not good, dude.
Yeah. Have you seen that picture with what's his name? The Facebook guy walking down the aisle with everyone wearing it. It's like the Matrix. Oh, Mark Zuckerberg. And
it was a picture of him wearing it?
No, I think it was like the rollout of the VR. And there's this really ominous picture where it's like the most evil scene I've ever seen, where he's walking down the aisle and everyone's in this auditorium with wearing the VR to their head. And he's not wearing one, and he's walking down. It's like a total Matrix moment.
That's crazy. It's crazy. I'm seeing a lot, and this is all it's hijacking. I was just reading an article recently about the father of biohacking, which is Dave Asprey, apparently. But nothing against Dave. I mean, he's putting out, some good work. I listen to his show sometimes, he's got some interesting stuff. But what is crazy about this is that he's sort of like spearheading this movement, and wearables and all this kind of stuff. And it's introducing this kind of idea that human beings are meant to be biohacked and taking exogenous sources of blood and infusing them into your body. And, this is one of the reasons why I think the Oura Ring, I don't know anything about it, but I don't know. I mean, these types of things, it's like what Adam was saying on your podcast recently. He hasn't had a blood test in like 35 years or something. Yeah. And I think it's good to track stuff, but where do we draw the line on some of this stuff? Like if I had an Oura Ring, maybe I would wear it for, like if I was going through a stressful time, I might wear it and get some ideas and then just lay off and a couple times a year do a week-long stint. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I don't know, where do we draw the line on that stuff?
It's really funny timing of you bringing that up, because I have the Oura Ring, and Harpreet's a friend of mine, the founder, and I actually took a break from it. I haven't worn it for weeks, and I love the product. I love the company. I love what they're doing.
And the idea is great. It's like cell phones. It's what you can do is amazing.
Right. But I fully agree. I mean, I don't even like wearing a watch or.
I don't have anything on. No rings, nothing.
I mean, when you think about it, every piece of metal you have on you is an antenna.
That's why I don't wear a wedding ring. I should have a rubber one, but I've never, because of that reason. That'd be good, huh? That'd be pretty cool.
Hunt an animal and then bring it to
that would be
wife.
cool.
But I fully agree. That's how I'm using it now, and I agree with that whole tracking mindset. And my friend Stephen Warren, good friend of mine, said that same thing. It's like,
I like him. He's cool.
Yeah. It's like, because you can get really heady with the tracking, and I think where this started was with weight loss, right? People tracking their calories and their meals, and you go to fast food joints now, and I think they have the breakdown, right, of how much this is Chipotle, and they have the calories of each one.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I got so sick after you.
Well, we all make mistakes.
Right.
It's all good.
But I fully agree that we should get more in tune with our intuition and more in tune with how we feel. And I mean, just like going back to what I said earlier about the coffee thing.
Right.
I can tell without having to look at my Oura Ring results if I didn't get a lot of sleep or if I shouldn't drink coffee. And I just don't.
Yeah. So like last night, I didn't sleep well. I don't need an Oura Ring to tell me that. I woke up and I was tired. So it's like, I don't need a ring to tell me that. Yeah. But I see the value in it. That's like one of those things. It's like with cell phones, and it's really important to have an understanding and understand where these things come from and what the agenda is. And you talk a lot about that. Is like understanding the agenda and then mitigating the physical effects of it. With all the different things that's going on with the light and the EMF, but then also understanding the actual like way it's recording you.
Right.
And I'm just looking at it right now, that damn thing. And it's not even like, I don't even have a cell phone plan, but I know it's recording us. So it's understanding that.
Well, I have a freaky story for you. So
oh, no.
This is like 2 months ago, and I have a Mac computer. And there's probably backdoors built into all these, Macs especially, right?
Yeah.
iPhone included. And so I'm sure like you cover up the camera, right? It's just the way to do it.
Totally. Always.
When you're not using it. And so I had my electrical tape, and I forgot to cover it back up after my interview that I had with somebody.
Okay.
And I'm sitting there with my friends, and it's like almost midnight, and it turns green, which means that it started recording. And my Iris program, the software, goes from red to completely white. So my blue blocking software turns off at the exact same second that it starts recording. And I don't have Skype running. I don't have iMessage running, anything. And we were, 20 feet away from my computer, and it flashlighted all of us, and it was almost like something was looking at us.
What do you mean flashlighted?
Like it lit up my whole living room.
Just because it went to 6,500 Kelvin?
Yeah.
Is that basically what happened?
Yeah. At this exact same second that it started recording, and the webcam went on. Because on a Mac desktop, if it turns green, it means it's on. And it was off. So there was no green light next to the camera, and then it went green. So that was just a little freaky reminder for me to like be more careful with not only video recording but audio.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, we might sound like a tinfoil hat person with that, but there's different things you could do, like using a VPN is a good idea.
Yeah.
To change your IP address. And
Right.
using another thing I like is using DuckDuckGo, which doesn't track you like Google does.
I heard recently, I was talking about that, and someone mentioned in one of the comments of our show that DuckDuckGo has just been bought by Google.
No.
Shocker. I can't believe it.
Oh,
but
geez.
I asked him to provide some links or evidence, and he said he will, and he doesn't have any right now or something. So I don't know.
I don't believe him.
Yeah, I need evidence. But I mean, like if I were Google, I would do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you have to think like how these people, they like, it's not conspiracy theory. It's just control. It's domination. It's money. You know, and all of that, mostly control.
Yeah.
And I get it. Like it's not good, but it's just like that's what anybody would do who is fearful and scared and wants to control other people.
Yeah, I forget if it was, I think it was the Ken Rolla one recently where he was talking about Wi-Fi enabled toasters and all these different appliances.
Yeah.
And how it's all to collect data. So everything's becoming smart.
Right.
You know, my neighbors have Alexa and it freaks me out to go over there because I'm like, I have to watch what I say.
I know.
Yeah, and one big thing I always tell people is on the iPhone, especially, just for EMFs, this makes a huge difference if you're holding it in your hand. It's been a game changer for me. Turn off location services whenever you're not using the GPS.
Let me see if so I don't have a phone on here. Will that matter?
Well, if you go to settings, then you go to privacy.
Let me do it. Settings.
And then
Okay.
privacy.
Okay, I have, let's see, where's settings? I have privacy. I'm already in settings. Okay, privacy.
Yeah, and then it should be at the top. It should say location services.
Okay, mine says off.
Oh, then you're good.
Okay.
Yeah, most people have it on just because they're using Google Maps or Waze or some
Okay.
other navigation app.
Okay.
Which if you're going somewhere new, you need to have, right? But when you get to your destination, or especially when you're home, that's another EMF, antenna basically. It's another emitter, that location service. It's a GPS. And
what's his name was on our show, Zirin. Are you familiar with that
Kennedy,
guy? Yeah, he's a cool guy.
Is it Zirin? Is that your
Zirin, yeah.
Okay.
And he used to live in Huntington Beach, so I was trying to get him in the studio, and I caught him right when he moved to Colorado, I guess. But he was talking about he was just blatantly saying, and it's just, it's like these things sometimes, but having a show where we're exposed to information directly from other people, it's sometimes just good to hear. And he was just saying directly, like, these things are weapons. Like, they're weapons. And you have to understand that. And it just was like, okay, like now I get it a little deeper, helps a little more understand that.
Yeah.
Because they're so cool and you can do so much with them,
Yeah, and that's kind of a red pill. It's hard to swallow, right? Or a black pill. There's so many colored pills now.
Yeah.
White pill, black pill, red pill. It's funny.
Copper pill.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, I'm looking for like a decentralized, almost like a DuckDuckGo if that hasn't been bought out, like a, kind of like a alternative to an iPhone, and I'm sure there's something coming like that. I can see it. But.
Yeah, I've heard about people talking about phones and things and how, instead of making it, some people just want to mitigate the effects of it.
Right.
Because there's so many things to think about with a phone. There's the blue light, there's the EMF, and then there's the tracking, right? And then on top of that, there's the psychological impacts to your brain.
The
dopamine hits and addictions from all this stuff. So you have, like, that's just 5 things I can think of really quick, and then there's more. So, like, people are talking about mitigating all that, and that's great. But then, some other people are talking about, like, is there a way to actually make this thing beneficial? Like, maybe like the blue shield emitting some sort of scalar energy or something and making it good, making it actually healthy for you. I don't know.
That would be cool to build that in. That would
Wouldn't that be
like,
cool?
It's like $1 million idea.
Yeah, right? Brandon, come on. Get on it.
Yeah, I've heard, I have some really cool, like, mother friends, and one's like a homeschooler, and she talked about because I'm sure you've studied, like, the whole pornography thing and just how, like, kids are being kind of preyed on, like, early on with just all these, cartoons that are becoming scarier and scarier, and there's, like, hidden messages in it and
Totally.
stuff.
The whole Disney thing.
Yeah. And I think there was, like, child lock phone almost that she was talking about. That was kind of cool.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
There's like locks built into it for the kid, you know, so he can't access certain things.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Got to have that. I wanted to ask you before we wrap up, but I could go forever. So just let me know when you want to stop. But I wanted to ask you, so you went through a complete overhaul of your company, and we're talking a little bit about this before we started. And this is one of the things I was sharing on our last radio show with Ken Rolla that didn't work out. But I was just talking about who to listen to online, and it's really challenging. Like, who do you get your health information from? And we all go through stages where we like put these people into godlike status, you know, whether it's Jack Cruz or Ray Peat or Adam Bergstrom or people lower down the line, you know, but everyone has a journey where they're sort of hopping from one person to the next, and that's great. But what I was talking about during that time was like, if you see a person who's got a practice, and we were talking about this before, if you see a person who has a practice and they're seeing people all day long, much like a medical doctor, right? They don't have time to research. So there's an issue with that. Or if you see someone who's got a product tied to a philosophical idea, that's an issue as well. Or if you have someone like a healing center of some kind that's also tied to some sort of philosophical healing modality, that's an issue too, because their philosophical ideas are tied to their business, and that's a real issue. So where I like to be, and you like to be, is malleable, and where and how our business changes over time. And so you did a video a while back about, I think it was called Why I Was Wrong About DHA. Yeah. And I don't know if people that are high up in health, super huge followings, would do something like that. You know what I mean? And that shows a lot of integrity, because here you are with a DHA company that was doing really, really well, and you're bootstrapping it, and you were building an audience and a following, super successful, and this is a great thing. But then you start learning some contrary information. So then what do you do with that? Knowing what you now know, how do I help other people understand? And do I walk away from this thing that's making me a lot of money and live with integrity? And so you did a really cool video about that. And I know that with your willingness to put your neck out on the line like this, the only way for you to be genuine and authentic is for you to risk yourself like that, and for people to just start calling you names. And then that's happened, right? So with all of that said, I'm interested to hear, and I'm sure people that are watching this are interested to hear as well, what your thought processes were and how aligned you are with truth versus money, and actually wanting to help people. I think it's really important to understand that.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah.
It really comes from a place of genuinely wanting to help people, and that's where I started this whole journey, because that was really my moment of starting this journey was 2010, really January of 2010, and getting into green vegetable juicing and raw veganism and detox. And I thought that was the holy grail. And every time I found a new thing, I thought that was it. And after trying it all, and it all meaning vegetarianism, veganism, for combined just about 9 years, 8-9 years, I did paleo, I did fruitarian, I did high carb, low fat, low carb, high fat, just liquidarian. I mean, you name it, I've tried it. Extreme fasting.
Did you do the keto thing?
Did the keto thing.
Did the keto thing, yeah.
And each experiment was minimum 6 months, but usually a year.
Okay.
And I just discovered balance, and I'm just so passionate about sharing that message of balance with people. And I genuinely want to help people that are stuck in these kind of fad mindsets of, you know, whatever box it might be, if it's keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, you know, we really have to live our life in a balanced way. And yeah, I couldn't get up in the morning and share what I do if I was doing it from a place of wanting to take advantage of people, because that would be too exhausted for me. I just can't. I don't have that methodology of thinking of trying to hurt people. It's just, it's kind of like being in a long relationship and trying to lie and trying to keep lies going.
Right.
Eventually, it's going to come out from family members, or
Right.
there's only so long you could keep a lie going.
Right. They're going to catch the breatharian at Taco Bell.
Right.
It's inevitable. It's just,
Yeah, I think that's what people need. Truth takes a lot less energy, and eventually the people will see the mask come off. And even if people see the mask come off in secret, then those people that saw it in secret will bring it out to the light and share it with all the rest of us. So, I think in today's world of social media and just everything's being shared, and there's no real privacy anymore.
Right.
That you really have to be yourself and come from a genuine place of wanting to help people. And so I get messages every day, like on Instagram, from people like, you changed my life, just this one product. I just got a message about the spore-based probiotics the other day. Like, eczema I've had for years went away, my gut issues went away.
Wow.
Or with my enzymes, someone messaged me this morning and she was like, I can't describe it, but like my consciousness is at another level, I guess, because they're generating more energy from having less scar tissue. And sometimes I take those messages for granted, and then I have to go back and reread it. I'm like, wait, I didn't fully.
That's an actual person behind that.
Right.
It's hard to remember that, right?
Yeah. And the impact that has. And so that is my major motivation more than money, is getting those messages, because it's frustrating to live with a chronic illness, to live with symptoms that you feel, even holistic doctors are clueless. Like, I get messages every day about iron. Like my doctor just wants to give me more iron when I say I'm anemic, and I introduce them to my podcast and the copper thing. And so it's really fulfilling for me, and it makes it fun to help people in this way. I think maybe because I'm a guy, maybe because I'm a Virgo. I don't know, maybe where the planets were when I was born, that probably has an effect, but I'm very intellectual and very mental focused. Mm-hmm. And so if I could just use that aspect of myself that I have most activated to help people, with these little science things and these little dots that I connect, and
I think that's the biggest
details.
Part of your work that is really great is connecting all these dots. They're previously disconnected, or diminished in some way, or minimized.
Yeah,
it's really important to connect all those dots.
Appreciate it.
So is it challenging for you to, like, when you finally stepped away from MitoLife or Symbiotica, right?
Yeah.
So when you walked away, was that like that first piece of content that you put out, stating that? What was that like? Was that were you nervous?
I was pretty nervous. Yeah, it kind of felt like making my first YouTube video.
Yeah.
I think because I knew the ripple that was going to create, and I don't mean to sound dramatic, but that industry really does feed the cancer industry directly. And so that was like an oh my God moment for me, where I feel like my physical safety was less important. And again, not to be dramatic, but I mean, people have been offed for less than and with the impact that I've had so far, I seem to influence the alternative health space somehow. I don't know how it happens, but I'll influence. Like, a lot of people with 70, 80,000 followers watch all of my stuff, and then they'll take it for themselves. And I don't mind. I mean, as long as it's getting out there.
Yeah, totally.
But I'm kind of like the guy that people watch with a lot of followers, and then they're like, oh, okay. And then I experiment with that and then share it with my huge audience. And I really think that I can make a dent, by the grace of God in the omega-3 industry, because we have to. I'm convinced that lipid peroxidation and acrolein and lipofuscin is the root cause of not only cancer but Alzheimer's, dementia. I mean, think about how devastating it is to have a family member not recognize you, right, and not being able to note right, this person raised you, and now they're not even recognizing who you are.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Dementia, and that's so heartbreaking. And just think about how easy that is to prevent just by being aware of this iron piece, this lipofuscin piece.
Yeah, it's a huge piece. It's crazy because there's like, certain people will talk about, if a fish is sick, what do you look at? The environment or the food that it's eating, right? And if he's swimming in dirty water, you want to clean the water out first. But it's interesting because we're not fish, and we can actually do both, right? So if there's a connection between this growing 5G phenomenon that's happening and iron in our bodies, it's not like we have to choose EMF mitigation strategies, which I fully endorse and think we should all do, but it's not like we can just ignore the food that we eat. Because for me, it's like, to the people that think light, water, magnetism, non-native EMF is important, I say that food is important more than you think. And to those people, I say light, water, magnetism is important. And then for both those camps, I say the spiritual connection to all this is really important too. There's a lot of pieces, and so maybe there's a connection between, like we said before, non-native EMF, 5G, and iron. I don't know anyone that's really looked into that, but why not work on both?
I fully agree. I think the more you can do at once, I work with a lot of people with different health conditions, and that where do you start? It's like, start everywhere if you can.
Yeah, why not?
Do everything.
Yeah.
Just jump in, because the more you do, the faster you'll see results.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience. And the great points. I like that. And non-native EMFs, I interviewed Dave Stetzer on my podcast, and
that was a good one.
Thank you. Yeah. And that's, to me, that's where to start with EMFs, before Blue Shield, before Scalar, or any of this, because you're getting rid of the physical aspect to EMFs, which,
right.
So for me, it's like magnesium, number one, magnesium bicarbonate, 2 Stetzer dirty electricity filters, maybe like 1 or 2 in each room, maybe 2.
Right.
And that could be expensive. It may be a $600 investment.
But it's a one-time thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rather than like some good food is, once a month you got to buy it.
Right. Yeah. And then turning off the Wi-Fi, and then the Blue Shield, and then I like the Soma Vedic. But that's kind of the order that I give people. But,
and then while you're doing that, then you could work on all this other stuff: the PUFA, the iron, the Lipofuscin.
Yeah, and I I'm not an extremist with PUFA. I didn't go to the opposite end. My perspective of it is, if your PUFA intake is 1% or less of your daily fat intake, and you're mostly getting saturated fat, like this morning I used 1 tablespoon of cream. I've had a ton of bone broth, had some MCT oil, had some grass-fed beef, had to put some butter on the grass-fed beef. I've had
you got to do that.
Jerky on the way here. So I've had a lot of saturated fat. So
I'm having that with eggs tonight for dinner.
That's awesome.
Good. Now I'm wondering real quick before you finish that statement. Yeah. I'm wondering how you are with the context with your own health, because I saw like you love to sort of go extreme on things, and like you were talking about before, we're joking about the mega dosing of the DHA, which is always, I wish I still had that video. It's an Instagram story, but. Do you worry? Because you know how Adam Berkson was talking about how like he does 5 pounds of sugar a month, So I wonder about this kind of stuff, because there has to be an aspect of like, for a guy like him, he's probably been into, with all his nitty gritty and all this stuff for 30, 40 years, been into this. But for guys like us, we have 30 years of PUFA intake. Is that, do you think, impacting the amount of sugar? Like, are you thinking to yourself, I would do more sugar, but I did a diet full of PUFAs for my whole life, so now I'll keep it at like a few tablespoons or something? Does that come into your play? That's
an awesome question, and something I have to look into more, because I've heard Ray Peat say that if you can actually break the barrier to sugar, so basically if your cell is resistant to sugar entering it, like sugar's not able to enter the cell, you can just stack on more sugar, just literally increase the volume of sugar. And it will shove it in the cell. Like the cell will if you get your blood sugar to a certain level, it will just go in. It's almost like banging down the walls. You get more people to do it, the door will open up, right? Yeah, and he made it sound like it wasn't an unhealthy thing to do. Like that's like a method to actually get your body to oxidize sugar. But I wonder if there's too much PUFA, though, if that would cause some interaction there. I think the safer way to do it is really niacinamide and aspirin. and then vitamin E to more of a long-term degree. But the niacinamide, which is a form of B3, and aspirin, acetylsalicylic acid, both inhibit lipolysis, so that people like Mark Sisson and paleo people talk about metabolic flexibility,
right.
And that's like their big buzzword that they sell the books on, and it's like the cell, you want to be able to do both, right? If you want to have a banana or whatever, you can. Yeah. You want on sugar, if you want to be keto someday. But I think they're referring to the Randall cycle, and that's the oxidation of sugar versus fat, and it gets a little deep into biochemistry. But my understanding is we're always doing a little bit of both. But if we're mostly using the beta oxidation of fatty acids, then we're, as Chris Masterjohn says, we're actually in a great he has like a 30-minute YouTube video on that presentation. We're using 50% more water, so we're getting dehydrated faster, and we're creating 50% less carbon dioxide. And so with less CO2, less oxygen is able to enter into that electron transport chain and make ATP. So yeah, hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know you've kind of joked around about deuterium, in the past, and I think you still do. But, we had the guys from that center, Deuterium Depletion Center, I think it's called. And what they say makes a lot of sense. It seems like there's a connection to the, what do they call those nanomotors, And I mean, but the question is, first of all, is what they're saying true? And then the second question is always like, how much is it true? So if someone says, oh, something affects the liver, like in my mind, I need to know, does it affect everybody's liver the same, and how much does it affect the liver? Because you could say, oh, this impacts the liver, but it's like nuance, like you talk about context, it's nuance too. It's like the devil's in the details. Yes. So the question is deuterium depletion true? Because I know you talked recently on a podcast about a philosophy class that you took in college, and critical thinking and how to think about these things. Right. So is it true, and then how true is it, and then is that truth spreadable to all humans? So deuterium seems to be like, it makes sense to me that the nanomotors are being clogged up by this extra, what is it called, proton, or what is
proton inhibitors? Is it? Are you talking about, you're not by the nanomotors, you're not talking about the mitochondria, or it's smaller?
Yeah, it's there's an extra, not electron, not a proton. There's an extra particle that makes the water heavy.
Oh, right. Yeah.
What is that called? I don't know, whatever it's called. But
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and that extra particle is what gums up the nanomotors.
Oh, heavy hydrogen.
Heavy hydrogen, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what gums up the nanomotors, which directly affects ATP production. I don't know. I mean, it's all like, it seems to make sense. And what are your thoughts about that?
There could be some validity to it. I always think about things in terms of priorities as well as context.
Right.
So like, when I think of water, my biggest priority is to take out the sulfuric and nitric acid.
Okay.
Those are not even considered. I'd say 99.9% of the health community doesn't even know those exist or in the water that they're drinking.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, the spring water, right?
Yeah, or Berkey or whatever they're doing, right? Gravity filters, carbon block, and so. In the hierarchy for me, it's like I don't want to melt my bones, So number one would be the acids, take those out. And there's also hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is industrial grade fluoride. And then number two would be having, contaminant-free water. And then number three would be having bicarbonate ions in that water. So the 4 electrolytes bound to the bicarbonate ion.
Right.
So I have, those 4 circuits in there to run my entire body and every cellular function essentially. Deuterium I would place as the number 4th priority after all of those. And so maybe after running it through like a pristine hydro system like I promote, and then lowering the deuterium, it's my understanding with getting the deuterium out or the heavy hydrogen, you have to distill it multiple times.
Is that right? Okay.
That's what I've heard from friends that are into the water thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, is it, if I had cancer or if I had a friend with cancer or some serious disease, I would be more concerned with getting them magnesium bicarbonate, because magnesium bicarbonate for the pancreas, acids hammer the pancreas, and the pancreas is what regulates the pH of all the tissues in the body.
Okay.
and PUFAs damage the pancreas.
Wow.
Carbs actually help regenerate the beta cells almost overnight.
The carbs are bad. Carbs are bad. We can't have carbs.
So yeah, so I think I've drank the deuterium depleted water once, and I think I felt something. It might have been psychosomatic. But yeah, I think it's like fourth priority with water.
It seems like it's worthy enough to be on the table, right? It's something viable instead of, it's not like a omega-3. It's like it's worthy to be on the table somewhere, I think.
I think so too. Yeah. Hopefully someone, I think it was like the John Ellis machine, or someone had like a machine.
Yeah, yeah. It was like a super expensive, I think, right?
I think it was like, $1,500 or so. I don't know.
I thought it was
more.
I thought it was like $10,000 or something.
Maybe so, yeah.
Wow, maybe.
Maybe I was looking on eBay, but yeah, I had a friend up in Canada that had it. It just seemed like a lot of work, and it's like,
yeah.
I just see in the health community, like people are going, like Jack Rizzi said, like to the, 50th floor instead of starting at the basement. I like that philosophy of like starting at ground level.
Right.
Why not start with the foundation first?
Yeah.
Especially with water, it's just like, filters to me are just like growing food or animal husbandry. It's something that we have to learn how to use, water filters. It's just unfortunate, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah, like I was reading something recently, 60,000 new chemicals have been introduced into our environment since the early 1960s. And then I think there's like 84,000. I think as of like 2012, it was 84,000 chemicals in commercial, in commerce. Wow. And it's like, how many hundreds of thousands of chemicals were already in existence pre-1960?
And people think they're safe with bottled water, and then you find out it's just bottled tap water, even when it says artesian spring or whatever.
Yeah, that's no good. So it's interesting because for me, I've been thinking about this a lot lately when it comes to people's health, because a lot of people are just like, how do I start? Like, what do I do? And it seems like for me, it's like starting a business, right? You could do all the sweat equity you want and do all the work yourself, which is one way. Or you could pay 12 people right out of the gate, which is another way. Or you could do a hybrid of both. And to me, it's like, with your health, where do I start? It seems like to me that what you'd want to do is start in the areas where you would make an investment, like an actual investment for mitigating the different environments where you spend the most time. Like you and I both are in love with the Magnetico, right? And so if you're gonna sleep already, it takes no extra work to lay except the one-time effort and of buying it, right? So like work on these things like you were talking about. I like the green wave ones or the Stetzer ones. Work on fixing the dirty electricity in your wall. Work on getting a water filter. Work on these types of things, because these are things that like you're already gonna get, make decisions. I'm already going to drink water and sleep and sit at a desk. Why not get a red light if you can? Things like this, they don't require discipline.
Right.
So that's the thing that's hard, is like discipline is like, you don't want to have to do that when you're trying to overcome 30, 40 years of eating a certain way. Work on that last, because that stuff I think moves the needle less.
I agree.
Don't you think?
Yeah, that's really well said. I just had someone message me that I have a lot of friends that work night shifts.
Oh, really?
On Instagram that messaged me, and she was saying, she's like, I started wearing blue blocking glasses, and even just yellow ones that block 50%.
During the like all night long?
Yeah, or I think she might have worked till midnight or something. It was like, a late night shift, 6 to midnight or something. She was saying like, no more headaches, my mood's more stable, I have more energy, and that's, just to put glasses on your face, it takes no effort.
It takes no effort, right?
So I think that's a really great point. People need to kind of take an inventory of where they, like you said, they drive a lot, they're in the car.
Fix that.
I guess there's not a lot you can do there. I guess podcasts are probably the best.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but there are things you could do in every area, like fix your working environment, fix your sleeping environment, fix your water, fix these things. And then if you want to try switching to some other kind of diet, that's going to take time and effort, and it's going to be more difficult, maybe, depending on what the diet is,
Yeah.
For you and me right now, the diet's, something amazing and awesome. But I just think because people start with the things that don't move the needle the most.
Yes, I agree.
And they're the hardest to implement every day because you're battling addictions. Like, just get the water filter and drink that. Easy, right?
Yeah, I always laugh at like the gym thing. Like, New Year's rolls around and people make their resolution. I think, what is it? January is the busiest day.
Yeah, and gyms,
busiest month, and that's probably making their problem worse, to stress the body of being under the blue light with all the chemicals off gassing.
Yeah.
And
that's why I stopped going there. Yeah, I just do all my workouts outside now.
It's cool to see your videos. That's inspiring. I've been doing the John Jakewish's X3 bar.
Yeah, how do you like that?
I love it. Yeah, it's it's just 10 minutes or less a day. And I feel it. I think the variable resistance and just the constant tension is it's a cool game changer. But I like your tools. I think that's another good way to do it with your you have your dumbbells where you can change the weight, right?
Yeah, the power block.
Yeah.
But I'm doing, since listening to your show with him, I'm playing around because I have a bunch of bands as well.
Oh, cool.
So I'm playing around with like regular bench press, but I'm using the bands on that as well.
That's awesome.
On both. So I'm playing around with bands a lot more, and I like it a lot. It's really cool.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of like rip-off companies now making them, but
is
it's
there?
essentially like the band and then the Olympic bar where the band can strap around.
Yeah.
And I think there's like Gorilla Bow, there's all these different ones, but I think X3 is the best, and then it comes with a plate, so you don't have to, there's no risk of it snapping up at your face when it's under your foot.
Yeah, that would not be good.
But yeah, it's interesting. Doing the overhead press, my whatever muscles those are, I think triceps maybe, are so underdeveloped because I had to actually start on my knees with the weakest band to do that.
Oh, wow.
So it's interesting. Like you quickly find out with those exercises which one you're the weakest in.
Yeah, that show you did with him was really good. It was really interesting, and I think that for most people, like in an ideal world, like where you're going to be moving to, you just do this stuff throughout the day. Like I've always been a lifting weight guy, and I like it, and it's just something that's just part of who I am. I've done it my whole life. But it's completely unnatural, like to do a bench press or to like go out and actually do this for an hour a day. It's totally unnatural. We should just be out in nature, tending our garden and being outside and working with the animals. Like that's what we should be doing,
Fully agree. Yeah, hunting and foraging. I'm looking forward to doing a lot more of that because I think social media, as we've talked about, can be like a black hole, and it's just there's
tough.
so many negatives to the phone. And,
Yeah.
And I think the good thing to do is to have physical face-to-face interactions, and then lots of outdoor time in the dirt, in the sun.
Yeah. Super important.
Years ago, I think you might have seen when I got into harvesting acorns, and those were my best days when I would go out and spend a day just collecting acorns from the ground, and it was very tedious.
That's so funny.
But I would fill up, bags.
I do that with pine pollen.
That's awesome.
It's so funny. Yeah, we all have those times, but it's cool though, isn't it? Like being connected to nature.
And it's a full workout. I mean, you're bending down hundreds of times,
yeah,
getting up and walking, and
I think it's super important. I mean, I think for people, working out in a gym or doing the X3 bar, doing stuff like this is important. If your life is like, behind a desk all day long, you got to do something to offset that,
Yeah, I do a lot of reading and writing, and so I'm over the keyboard a lot, and so I try to balance it out the best way I can.
What's going on with your blogs? I see you write blogs, but I never see them. Are they on your site? And I look for your podcast too, and it's not on your Matt-Blackburn site, is it?
It should be on
is
there,
it?
I think. Yeah, if you scroll down, it'll say Mitalife Radio, but I'll make it more.
Okay.
There might not be but I don't know, I'll fix it. But yeah, there's a blog. So if you go to Matt-Blackburn, there's a blog.
Let me bring it up here.
Section. And yeah, I haven't been too consistent, maybe like one a month, but I'll start pumping those out more often, and just talking about the products that I use and why I use them. And my latest one was on endotoxin.
Yeah, I want to talk about all your products. Let's do that for people, because we have them in our store, and I think they're awesome. So let's talk about them.
Yeah. So my most popular one by far is Dissolve It All,
which is awesome. If you guys are looking for a really great enzyme product, this is good stuff, dude.
Yeah, when I was raw vegan, that's actually how I got into enzymes, because it kind of goes together with raw veganism.
Yeah, totally. Got to have them.
Right?
Yeah, got to have them.
It's all about digestion. It's just hyper focused on the intestines.
Yeah.
But what got me back into enzymes is studying the Hans Selye, like stress, the effects that stress has on the body. And when we're stressed, we make 50% at least less enzymes, and we make a lot less hydrochloric acid. So that's why people have gas and bloating. So this, as far as digestive enzymes, I always get asked, like, can you take them like, are you supposed to take them with every meal?
Yeah.
And I have two thoughts with that. It's yes, if you're interested in anti-aging, because we're not getting a lot of enzymes unless you're doing, like I do, raw goat's milk blended with honey, with royal jelly, and bee pollen. There's a ton of enzymes in all those.
Yeah, right.
I'll put some propolis in there. It's pretty much the whole beehive with
Some
Shilajit and milk. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But sometimes I'm just having a beef bowl, with some bone broth, and there's literally no enzymes in there. And
Yeah.
so to get some living enzymes in, I take Digestidol. And so it's a mostly protease with amylase and lipase. So amylase breaks down carbs, protease breaks down protein, and lipase breaks down fats into smaller components. And then there's also cofactors in here. It's cool that I have amla berry in the digestive formula. So amla is an awesome source of copper. So you're getting that in microdoses when you take my digestive.
Cool.
Yeah, big fan of amla. I've been taking amla berry for years. But my most popular product by far is the Dissolvidol.
Okay.
And that's a systemic enzyme blend of nattokinase and serrapeptase. So nattokinase is derived from the fermented food natto, which is soybeans. I think it's actually
fermented soy, right?
The only redeeming quality of soy.
Which you megadosed, right?
Right. But you don't actually need soy fields to cultivate this. It's a bacteria.
Okay.
So they can just cultivate it that way. And it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife. Nattokinase does tons of things in the body to decrease inflammation. I'm getting crazy testimonials from this product of back pain. My friend's mom's back pain that she's had for years, chronic lower back pain, gone in a week. Then again, she was taking 9 capsules at once.
Was she?
This, before bed. So
was she doing it before, like when she woke up too, like away from food?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I think when she went to bed and then when she woke up. And serrapeptase is derived from the bacteria that's in the Japanese silkworm.
Okay.
And so that one is amazing for eating up scar tissue. So these are called proteolytic or protein-eating enzymes. So they won't eat your flesh. They target specifically exogenous proteins. So these are proteins that have been tagged by your immune system that shouldn't be there, which is amazing because that actually eats biofilm. So I just had Dr. Cass on, and we were talking about oregano. And a big fan of like oregano herb juice and
any way you can get it in your body.
Oil. Yeah.
He's so into it.
I always have it. Yeah. Anaphylactic shock. That's why I carry it, to save a life, hopefully. And yeah, it's just those biofilms people don't think about, like you're doing PEMF therapy or you're doing combined treatments. You want to break up the biofilm to be able to get to the pathogen.
Interesting.
So systemic enzymes are one of the best ways to do that. But scars, if you used to have acne, it's amazing.
Have you had anybody put one of those, like emptying out on a scar and use maybe DMSO or SSKI or something and rubbing it in?
That's a good idea. Yeah.
That would be interesting. Or maybe even some like castor oil or something. Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that up too, because with all of my products, like with my other 2 enzyme products, you can break those in water or break them in your mouth,
They say not to though, right?
Well, with the systemic ones especially, you don't want to, because it's funny, Adam Bergstrom isn't a fan of enteric coating. He says it's BS, but I think they work. But what makes my systemic enzymes different from most of the other ones is the capsule is phthalate free. And so it's been used for more than 50 years, and it's a plastic. Phthalate is just another word for plastic, and it's inert. So this capsule has to make it through your stomach acid into your small intestine whole. That's why I say drink a lot of water. Like some people said they got heartburn from it, because you have to drink, a good maybe 12 ounces, 8 ounces of water when you take them.
Yeah.
You don't want to swallow them dry because they'll just get stuck.
That would be good.
And so I take like 3 to 6, 2 to 3 times a day, and it has multiple different purposes. It's really interesting, the dovetailing with my PUFA research, because you know what causes endometriosis, polycystic ovarian syndrome? It's PUFA. That's the root cause of those conditions, and it's because PUFA increases estrogen, which then creates cysts and tumors. Estrogen drives cancer.
Right.
And so PUFA feeds estrogen. That the reason for estrogen dominance is polyunsaturated fatty acids. Not even if it's in the diet, maybe you're stressed and it's being released constantly into your blood, which is where vitamin E comes in, which I'll get to.
Yeah, I want to talk about that.
Yeah, so.
And before we go, do you want to take any questions from the people listening?
Sure, yeah.
Let's see if we can do that. Okay, well, we'll do that at the end. And if you guys do have questions, when we do take them, type them in all caps on YouTube so I can see what they are. But yeah.
Yeah, and then my gluten one, this one's, it's interesting because I feel like health people either fully avoid gluten, or if they're going to eat it, they're just like, F it, I'm just going to eat it and enjoy it. But I have this supplement anyway, and actually I'm having it for 50% off right now on my website. If you order any of my other products, you get a bottle for like $20, I think.
Oh my gosh.
And so it's 90 capsules. This is something to keep in your first aid cabinet. You're going out with your girl or your man and having pasta or pizza.
Right, that'd be perfect. Because you probably, like you said, don't eat it every day, so you can buy 1 or 2 bottles and just keep it for a year or something.
It would last forever. Yeah, and it's...
Would you want to keep it in your fridge?
You don't need to, no.
You don't?
It's a specific enzyme called DPP4, and I have a study on my website about people with celiac disease able to eat gluten with taking this enzyme, DPP4.
No way.
So there's not only that in here, but multiple digestive enzymes, lipase, even lactase. What's really cool is that in the digestive ones, there's lactase, and so I get questions a lot because I'm all about milk.
Right.
Who are like, I can't do milk. I'm like, take some lactase. Take one of my digestive enzymes when you drink milk.
Right.
And you can digest that lactose better. Also, doing raw milk, to get more of that lactase because heating destroys it. So I have these, and then the next one I launched was the Panacea. So that's Shilajit resin that's been compressed into tablets, because I've been taking Shilajit for many years, and that's why I feel qualified to come out with it. I really don't think, like, I can count on one hand people I know that have taken more Shilajit than me, that I've even heard of, actually.
Wow. Yeah, I wouldn't be on that list. I don't think many people would.
And it's just because it's just a priority for me with what I understand about it. It's a condensed ecosystem, and so I like taking Shilajit from multiple regions, and so it's a very, very complex whole food supplement. And so it's a mixture of animal and plant matter of that entire region, and so you can get it from the Himalayas is the most popular, but there's also the Rocky Mountains now.
Yeah, I heard about that one. And then, everyone knows the Russian one, right? Yeah,
the Russian one I think was one of the first.
Yeah.
Pretty sure.
I think that's the one that Dr. Jennifer Daniels talks about, right? Getting it from Russia.
Yeah, and I don't get in a space of like, one's better than the other. I don't think that's how to go about it with Shilajit. I look at it as different mineral composition of the different animals and plants in that area.
Yeah, and they're all going to react to your body different.
Right, yeah. So I take all three personally. I take Rocky Mountain, I take Himalayan, and I take Russian.
So why would someone, what is the main reason someone would take Shilajit? If there is one. Because there's a lot of, it works on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, so basically the more vegetable juicing you've done in your life, or the deeper you've gone into raw veganism, or just celery juice, or guilty.
We've all done it.
A head of lettuce a day for 4 years. That was my night. That was my nightly dinner.
Yeah.
A whole, the size of my head.
I've done that. Yeah.
And I was turning into a vegetable, because the vegetables will turn you into a vegetable because they contain inorganic minerals, because the cycles of the soil are not there. The nitrogen cycle, the carbon cycle, the telluric cycle, the mineral cycle.
What do you mean they're not there?
They've been altered. So what acid rain does is it kills the acidic microbes and it mutates the alkaline microbes, and there's no more fungal hyphae, and it wipes out the fungus.
Okay.
And the plants can't make fulvic acid. And so fulvic acid is something that the roots excrete, and there's this beautiful trinity with the microbes, the fulvic acid, and the fungus, and the polysaccharides and the fungus interplay.
Okay.
And this is all with all of these really complex Mother Nature cycles. And so
they're not there anymore.
They're not there anymore. And this is, we're going on at least 3-4 generations of this since the mid 1800s.
So this is the problem with people eating organic food or even growing it themselves? Well, I guess if you grow it yourself, you can kind of control the soils a little bit, right?
You can if you're not starting with a base of NPK, which is nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium.
Right.
And you could buy soils like Black Gold is a decent one. It's like 0.005 nitrogen.
Okay.
And then no phosphate or potassium.
Okay.
But it's complex, and I think, I don't know if I mentioned before the show, but I've been melting resin and adding it to my soil for years. I think that's a really good strategy to do.
Okay.
Like you can even use my tablets and just drop some in some hot water and then pour that on your plants.
Interesting.
You can bring house plants back to life with Shilajit. I've done it. And so, I think we have, people growing our food that don't have our best interests at heart. And looking to Justus von Liebig, he was the one who discovered minerals, and then we thought there were only 3, and then that's what they told us. And then they started dumping calcium hydroxide on the soil, and even Morley told me they're using copper sulfate on the soil, inorganic copper.
Wow. And
can the plants, and he was talking about it like it's a good thing, but can the animals convert that into a copper that's usable?
We don't know.
There's a lot of context there. There's a lot of variables. So Shilajit is it a way to get all your minerals? It's a way to get all your minerals, and it's a safety net. So
for this food that you've consumed your whole life?
And that you're consuming now. And so it chelates and complexes any monovalent and all monovalent and divalent atoms, meaning if you have copper in your body that isn't bound up with like ceruloplasmin, which should have like 6 coppers fully loaded, then this will go in. It can make copper bioavailable. It can make iron bioavailable, which is insane. That's my favorite use for Shilajit is with iron. There's a study I'll post on my website with Shilajit improving anemia. And
but why? I'm confused about why you would want iron to be bioavailable.
Well, the problem is having inorganic iron stuck in the tissues, and so that's it. There's heme iron and then there's non-heme iron.
Okay.
And a big confusion is, Matt, if you're saying iron's toxic, why are you eating a pound of beef a day? Because
I remember
beef has so much iron.
Yeah.
But the plants have more iron today than the meat, and it's the wrong form of iron.
So it's more, and it's the wrong form.
Mm-hmm. More or the same amount in the wrong form, because it's my understanding meat is like 50% heme, 50% non-heme, whereas plants are 100% non-heme and inorganic. And the effect that NPK fertilizer plus acid rain plus tap water has on minerals is insane. Like we don't really even know what toxicological synergy that's creating.
That's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Wild.
Like, it's 2019. It seems like we should know this stuff,
right.
Doesn't it?
Right. Well, the world of minerals is very complex because with copper and iron, there's different numbers. There's copper 1, copper 2, copper 3.
Interesting.
Yeah,
it's like what Adam Bergson was talking about. Like there's over 100 different types of vitamin D. So which one are we checking? And are we checking in the fat? Are we checking in the blood? Where are we looking for it too? So.
Right. Yeah. So I look at this as like a safety net. It's and really, since I'm into anti-aging, the cool thing is the Caraka states, Caraka, that if you successfully consume 1 kilo of Shilajit, you've extended your life by, I think it's 10 years, and you could continue doing that in increments of 10 up to 1,000.
Say that again. You're
So if you consume 1 kilogram, 2.2 pounds of Shilajit, that increases your lifespan by a decade. If you continue doing that, that increases your lifespan in decades up to 1,000 years.
Where did you get this?
So it's an Ayurvedic text called the Caraka. Caraka.
Okay, I've never heard of that. That's cool.
Yeah, and so I bathe in it. I put the powder in my bathtub. I buy kilos of it from Pristine Hydro. Yeah. But the reason why I came out with this form is I couldn't find any other company that's selling it. because you either have to take the powder, which, Shilajit tastes horrible. Let's just say it like it is.
It does.
And so with the tablets, I mean, maybe if you want to stimulate the bitter centers, it could help because it's very bitter. But with the tablets, you can just swallow them whole.
Yeah, like a pill.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine it's probably good for digestion too, right? Because of that bitter compound.
The fulvic acid is just a miraculous compound. There's actually carbon-60 in Shilajit. There's C60.
Really?
It almost has everything. There's an effect on retroviruses. Everyone's freaking out about retrovirus.
Yeah.
Shilajit has an effect on them. Has a huge effect on the immune system. I mean, when I think about trace minerals and the really rare minerals that we're not getting, I think about activating enzymes.
Yeah.
And so enzymes, vitamins, and minerals have a deep interrelationship. And they need each other. So.
Yeah, it's my understanding that you need to have the enzymes so that your bacteria can work to create the minerals. There's some connection between the bacteria as well in all of this, right? And so it's like you need the vitamins so that you can upregulate the minerals, right? Is that... At least that's what Dr. Ulrey said.
Yeah, there seems to be mixed. This is probably another point of debate because I know like Glenn Calkins says that you need minerals to make enzymes and vitamins work.
Yeah.
And then you have like Dr. William Wong who says you need enzymes for vitamins and minerals to work.
Yeah,
And
I was just listening to him today. Yeah,
I think it depends on kind of what side. I think it's a more balanced thing. Like they all work together equally.
Uh-huh.
They're all equally important.
Yeah.
But yeah, like supplementing like vitamin E or something gets a lot of flack. So they're like, your body won't absorb it if you're, mineral deficient.
Right.
But I'm not saying just take vitamin E. It's part of like, I guess I'm kind of designing a little bit of a protocol.
Yeah. So one question that you get asked a lot, and it is, all right, Matt, I've eaten PUFA my whole life. What do I do to get rid of this stuff? So I know you get that question a lot.
I get it every day. Yeah. That's a blog post. Right.
You should just we'll answer this question and you'll just take this video answer and put it somewhere where everyone sees it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. So as I talked about earlier, it's the glucuronidation in the liver. There's also methylation, but glucuronidation is the main pathway by which the liver gets rid of the PUFA, and you can literally displace it with saturated fat.
Yeah.
So my personal strategy for doing it is supporting the liver first and foremost with glycogen, and so getting consistent carbohydrates. And so there's a lot of carbs in 1 tablespoon of honey. So even if it's and honey is a fruit replacement. If you can't eat fruit, I almost think honey is better. But if you can't get fruit, straight up honey scoop right in the mouth.
Are you worried about the deuterium in the fruit? Do you think that's an issue?
I don't think so.
Because if you do honey, then you can,
Yeah, that's a good question. Is it red light and UV light depletes deuterium, I think? Or sunlight. Yeah, I think there's ways to get rid of it. I'm not really too concerned with accumulating it. Maybe there would be like a procedure or something where they could suck the deuterium out of me someday.
And all the PUFA with it.
Right.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, so in the same way, so of like in the old philosophy, like cures like, so you want to displace the polyunsaturated fatty acids with saturated fat, right?
With saturated fat, yeah. And Adam Bergstrom talks about oleic acid a lot. And there's also meat acid, and there's palmitic acid, and there's stearic acid, and there's all these different acids that are part of the cell.
Yeah.
And what we've been taught, Ray Peat challenges in a really cool way, which is dogmatically defended, is the idea of cellular pumps and membranes. And he challenges the idea that there even is a membrane.
Right.
Like Adam's talked about this.
Yeah.
And
he says there's no membrane. It's all just a bunch of hogwash. It's pressure differences, right?
Yeah, osmotic. Yeah. So it's interesting, and who knows? But if you don't consume any PUFA at all, and even no saturated fat, and you just consume sugar, then your body will make, I think it'll make oleic acid out of that, and then saturated fat.
Really?
From just the sugar
or
the carbs.
Really?
Yeah. So I know the body can convert things, but it takes things to complex to make new things. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. The
So you're
whole
gonna be using up-
biological transmutation thing is.
Yeah, the thing about calcium and chicken eggs always fascinated me. Like, you know, the chickens aren't getting any calcium in their diet, yet they're concentrating calcium in the eggshell.
Right. Yeah.
They're combining different materials. So
I've heard that too with people with bone loss and things. You know, you want to increase your amount of magnesium and silica to create calcium at the end stage, because people are focusing just on calcium, you know, and that's.
Yeah, it's kind of, to me, like calcium, iron, and iodine are three things we should never, ever have to really think about as far as getting in our diet. And some people would maybe beg to differ with the calcium thing.
Well, iron as well too, right? Wouldn't, or no, not iron, I mean iodine.
Iodine, yeah.
People would say that we're completely depleting in iodine, and the longer we bathe in fluoridated showers and things like that, we're going to be.
It's in milk.
Iodine?
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't, you know, I do dairy, I do butter, I do colostrum, I love that. I do cheese, I do all kinds of dairy, but I just never, I haven't gone into the milk thing yet.
Yeah. It's kind of addictive. Might be all the opioid-like effects. No, I'm kidding.
No, I was just listening to Ray Pete today, and he was talking about how he's no longer drinking, I think, a gallon a day, but he's drinking like 3 quarts still, or 2 quarts or something, but he swears by it, you know?
Yeah, and he promotes the skim milk because it's interesting. The Pete community is kind of, I think, higher carb. It's like maybe 60% carbohydrate. Because I'm doing, you know, the raw goat's milk full fat.
Okay.
So I feel really good on the saturated fat. But yeah, getting back to the question, it's just supporting the liver with consistent glycogen, and that's lowering stress. So that's easier said than done. But it could take 6 to 9 months or longer to lower your stress in multiple ways so that you can actually store glycogen in your battery pack, your liver.
Okay.
To be able to last even through the night, 8 hours.
Without going to the bathroom or having a blood sugar change?
Going to urinate's fine, but without waking up in a panic state. And I think there's an association with nightmares and running out of fuel in the liver.
Interesting.
I noticed like I have good dreams when I have a lot of carbs before bed.
Really?
Yeah. So
that's funny. I don't dream ever. I kind of wish I did. That would be cool.
Yeah, I think there's certain herbs you can take or something. I forget. But But yeah, basically glycogen, choline is really big. Like my requirements, according to my 23andMe, I should be getting 5 eggs minimum a day amount of choline to support the liver's detoxification. So that little one piece alone for people could be huge for detoxing PUFA, just eating way more eggs than they think. Because a lot of people will just eat 2 a day and that's it or whatever.
Yeah.
You might need to eat 5 or 6.
Yeah. What about people you think that are allergic to it?
I'm trying to think of other choline sources. I'm not sure. They have to look that up. But
I definitely notice a change in my pulse and heart rate when I eat eggs. So I've been doing the yolks, which is what I like anyway.
Yeah, I even learned like I sometimes crack it and then let them run through my fingers, and then you could bite the yolk and then just literally suck it out.
Oh,
so
really?
So you leave the little sac
Yeah.
intact, and you just suck the fluid out.
Wow.
I think I learned that from like Robert Cassar.
Probably, yeah. Or Ogenus. That's interesting. So you're coming out with a product related to detoxing PUFA, right?
So that's actually today. It's a very perfect timing. And so that would actually be my third step is vitamin E. So to recap, fueling the liver with carbs, with glycogen, choline, and then vitamin E. And this would be like a consistent daily thing you would do. And then obviously limiting PUFA intake, but you don't have to get neurotic about it. Just making sure that you're not doing, full diet of nuts, seeds, grains, legumes, soy.
So the raw vegan diet.
Right.
Pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah. So vitamin E is it's really interesting. There's a direct relationship between vitamin E deficiency and PUFA intake. And so any food, so it's interesting. Any food that has like iron in it will have copper in it usually.
Okay.
So same as like citrus, like the way that citrus gets vitamin that gets copper up into it is with iron.
Interesting.
I learned that from Morley. It's kind of cool. So with PUFA, anytime you have omega-3s, like think of like wild Alaskan salmon, you're going to have the DHA there, which is a toxin, but it's not isolated. You're not taking a capsule of it.
Right.
It has selenium and it has vitamin E.
Okay.
And so right now we're in an unbalanced place where for 20 or 30 years we grew up, you know, just like I did, burritos, Mexican joints, you know, pizza joints. I remember what I ate in high school. It was just a lot of garbage, right?
Yeah,
and you go out with your friends and you party and
just pizza and whatever else. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a whole PUFA upbringing. It really was. And,
Yeah.
And they were using those oils. I mean, they were cheap. So the fast food joints, so all this stuff that we ate in our childhood is still in us. It's in our adipose. And it's stored there. And it could take up to 4 years to get out. And I've heard different kind of like time frames for this.
Okay.
But it makes sense that it would take that long if it's taken this long for us to build it up. The good news is you don't have to megadose vitamin E. It's not like take, you know, handfuls and handfuls of vitamin E capsules and you're going to detox it faster.
Right.
It's a consistency thing. And even just 400 IUs, literally just one of my capsules, supplements $35. So it's very affordable, and I'll run sales all the time and stuff. So
yeah.
it'll, you know, it's essentially at least a 2-month supply or more if you take one a day. Very affordable. And if I'm going out and I'm not sure what they're cooking it in, just to be safe, I'll take 1,600 IUs. So I'll literally I'll take 4.
Yeah.
And just to be safe. But generally, I think 400 international units of vitamin E is enough to neutralize a PUFA meal. So it literally protects against all of the negative effects of lipid peroxidation.
Really?
Which is kind of cool.
Wow, like that's huge.
Yeah, Chipotle cooks their rice and they use rice bran oil. Their meat, and their rice.
I don't eat there, but yeah, okay. Wow.
So any fast food joint, I mean, even, you know, In-N-Outs or the fries or whatever. Even peanut oil. There's a good place here in SoCal called Burger Lounge, which is like one of my favorite spots.
Yeah, I go there. Yeah.
It's delicious. They cook their fries in peanut oil, it's a heavy PUFA.
Yeah.
So this is like taking like Digestidol, my digestive enzymes, Shilajit if you want to take it up a notch with the fulvic and vitamin E. That trio, you're completely protected and you'll feel like $1 million after you eat out, you know?
Well, it's crazy because we got some gluten-free pizza a while back with organic grass-fed cheese. It was crazy. It was really good, and I hadn't had pizza in years, and so that was right when your Digestidol was there, and man, what a difference! Like
awesome.
It's like I just flew through that pizza, and I just felt amazing. And it's funny because like when you are on a raw vegan diet for so long, like I was. If I had eaten something like that at the middle of my journey on that, it would have just crushed me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now that I'm sort of supported in a lot of different ways, I can have something like that. But I still was like leery about how I would feel, and I was nervous about it.
Yeah.
But dude, I felt amazing. Like I took the enzymes. I think I took 2 or 3 of them, and I just felt amazing. Like no. You know, you could eat, just bloated or whatever. Awesome. It just felt like breeze through that.
That's amazing. Yeah, and the cool thing is you really only need one. I mean, that's the serving size. That's all I take. And I'll even take it with my snacks, even if I'm just having jerky or something.
Yeah.
But
you can never have enough enzymes, right? It's like you can never have enough, right?
Well, the good thing too is you can actually eat more. That's what I noticed with digestive enzymes when I take them. So if you want to, you know, if you're having a delicious meal, you know, it's authentic pizza at an Italian restaurant. It's awesome.
Yeah.
You can actually eat more of it. That's been my experience with gluten enzymes, which is cool. Like you actually have more room in your stomach.
That's cool.
It's weird. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, yeah, and the vitamin E will be released today. It's called PUFA Protect.
Is that going to be on your website today?
Yeah, and it's called it's PUFA Protect, and it's an extract from non-GMO sunflower, and it's D-alpha tocopherol. And so with vitamin E, there's 8 different types. There's tocopherols and there's tocotrienols.
Okay.
And in each one, there's delta, beta, alpha, It's basically like the brain waves.
So there's 4 kinds, but then 2 of each kind.
Delta, beta, gamma. I'm fried from
Alpha.
the drive.
I know, right? I can't remember either.
Yeah, delta, theta, alpha, beta. I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Something like that. But they're called mixed. And so mine just isn't only the D alpha, which is mostly what's been used in the research by Dr. Shute in Canada in the 70s, but it's also the mixed tocopherols. So you're getting the other ones. But it's interesting. The liver makes an enzyme that preferentially chooses D-alpha tocopherol. And so people think, oh, shouldn't I get all 8? Isn't that natural in the exact ratio? No, it's actually not natural. In nuts and seeds, it's mostly this D-alpha tocopherol. And that's what all the studies were used with. And
wow.
it's not synthetic, because there are synthetic vitamin E's. Like I think even Monsanto has one.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but they're giving it to their, I think it's an animal feed. So yeah, this is a natural vitamin E, and the benefits are incredible. I've been super geeking out on it because it's been suppressed. It's one of those supplements that used to be big.
Yeah.
And then fish oil came in and squashed it. And so vitamin E will oppose all the negative effects of estrogen, which is a stress hormone, which causes all those things I mentioned earlier. It spares progesterone and vitamin A, which is huge for the liver.
Yeah, that's huge.
It protects against lipid peroxidation. It protects against calcification and iron overload. And it's one of the major body's antioxidants. So along with vitamin C, our body uses vitamin C and vitamin E as mainly our antioxidant system.
Interesting. Okay.
So it'll neutralize free radicals. And so when you think about going out and you're getting this chemical barrage, this chemical cocktail in your food, but you still want to enjoy it.
Yeah.
You have your antioxidant, you have your enzyme, and then you have your fulvic to break down the rocks in the food, the non-carbon bonded inorganic minerals.
Right.
So that's my personal strategy, and it's been working out. And even for male enhancement, I mean, throw that in there.
Yeah.
Not marketing it as like a Alex Jones, pill, but super male vitality. But
yeah.
it does increase oxygenation of the tissues, and so that's where it's.
Well, that's not just good for that, but also people that work out.
Good for the
or
brain,
longevity.
for preventing neurodegeneration.
Yeah.
Yeah, oxygenates the entire. It's even been used for fertility, and so anything, male or female, if you have excess estrogen, that increases stress and decreases fertility. So just by taking vitamin E, people that have been having trouble conceiving could actually do it. So
that's cool. Dude, I'm glad there's guys like you that read an entire book on vitamin E out there, because I don't have time for that. That's awesome, though. So you read a whole book about that and all your studies as well.
Yeah. Herbert Bailey, he's written a lot of great books on it, and I just really like studying. The fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K are really interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
And, vitamin D we can get just from – that's really easy to get. I think people freak out about it a little too much.
Yeah.
It's in milk. It's in dairy. It's in cheese. It's in eggs. Get it from the sun.
Cholesterol, your liver.
Right, yeah. But it's really the vitamin A and the E and the K2 that's pretty hard to get.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people, more than we think, are retinol deficient or vitamin A deficient. And that could be the source of a lot of their issues, hormonal issues, skin issues.
That's crazy.
Because the liver needs vitamin A and copper to function. And so any kind of symptom you have that's tied to the liver, then it's usually like, okay, I need some vitamin A, I need some copper.
How many regulations or processes do the liver respond?
500.
It's over
plus.
500 plus.
That's
crazy. So you deal with that, and then you deal with iron and PUFA, and you're really fixing yourself,
Yeah. Like Morley has the root cause protocol, which I love, and everyone. Glenn Calkins has his protocol, which is basically magnesium bicarbonate and Shilajit.
Yeah.
And everyone has their protocol, which is do this and you'll heal from X through Y disease.
Yeah.
That's not really where I'm coming from, but I just figure, the more I look at all these protocols and I just smack my head. I'm like, really? Like all of these really complex gallbladder flushes and parasite cleanses and 10-day green juice cleanses. And it's like,
I know.
Why aren't we starting just with like these things that actually really move the needle, like magnesium like Shilajit, like endotoxin, taking a spore-based probiotic, beef liver, giving your body copper that it's never had.
Right.
These are like really foundational things that you're switching on hundreds or thousands of functions.
Yeah,
in the body.
it's like the enzymes, or the not the enzymes, but the probiotics. What do they call those ones that are the base probiotics that feed all the other ones? You know.
Parent? No.
Yeah, no, they're like part of the Thrive has them. Like they're the ones that are the base, like 4 or 5 different ones, and then they feed everything else.
Oh yeah.
I forgot the way they describe that.
Yeah,
but.
I forget. I had Karan Krishnan. I just remember he was saying they're ubiquitous. Like, you know, you can get them in your fingernails in the mountains by digging in the dirt.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you want to take a couple questions?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, let's see what we can drum up here. See what we have. All right, so. All right, let's see. Big Fat Mama. By the way, what is up with omega-3 DHA? Okay, so this is going to be good. So Big Fat Mama, she's in our chat a lot, which is cool. By the way, I didn't see your comment before, but you say here, by the way, what is up with omega-3 and DHA? And Jack Cruz, he says we can only use DHA in the SN. I was going to ask you about this, the SN2. Mm-hmm. Apparently it's paramagnetic and whatever, in the SN2 position because it's paramagnetic. Wouldn't any fatty acid be paramagnetic? I've looked for 10 hours with no answer. Yeah, so what's up with this? So what do you think about that?
You know, I kind of moved away from the whole quantum, because I was really deep into that, as I think you saw. Mm-hmm. And
I was too. I mean, I've watched every video he's done, except for his member stuff. But
yeah, and you know, I think there's a connection to like spiritual beliefs here, because I came from the New Age thing, and mm-hmm. you know, went into the whole psychonaut, Terence McKenna territory for years, and this does connect to the question. And now I identify as a Christian. That's how I was raised, and I think when you get into like the whole, you know, quantum. I mean, this is based on the work of Dr. Bazan. I think that's who Jack Cruz references a lot.
He does, yeah.
And that's just one dude. And so I don't know, to base an entire philosophy and then keep building on that one thing as if it's gospel. I'm not sure if that's wise to do. So, yeah, I moved away from the whole quantum health and, you know, all of that kind of mindset, just to more of like a practical, grounded kind of thing. Because I mean, I remember I was naked in an ice bath at Solar Noon when I was renting out my RV. I did the thing where I was taking methylene blue and DHA before I went out into the sun, trying to absorb more light. And it's like, for what? Why am I trying to absorb more light? Well, because I was obsessed with light. Well, why? Because I thought it was the answer to health. And now I know it's much more complex.
It's part of it.
It's part of it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I've wondered about a long time. Ken Rolla had a protocol of EM1, effective microorganisms and rock minerals and monoatomic elements to feed plants and ferment compost into minerals, into bioavailable forms for plants. Do you think this is good for us to eat?
I think all that sounds pretty good, except for the monoatomic, was it gold?
And rock, let's see, EM1, effective microorganisms and rock minerals and monoatomic elements to feed plants and ferment compost minerals into bioavailable forms.
I would switch out the monoatomic elements for Shilajit, then I would give that a thumbs up.
Okay.
And then prioritize filtered water above that.
Yeah, Ken, I think, he just did a cool thing for our academy, a 5G mitigation thing, which is really cool. But is he a raw vegan, or is he a vegetarian?
I think he's vegetarian.
Yeah. I think he's vegetarian. And I think he grows a lot of this stuff too. Okay, so let's see. What are the optimal levels of vitamin D3 on blood test results?
So this is where everyone varies.
Mm-hmm.
So Morley Robbins says like 20 to 30 nanograms per deciliter, I believe, is the measurement.
Yeah.
And then someone like Jack Cruz, who, is a sun worshiper, would say 50 or 60, something in that range, or I think even higher. I think he says even 70 to 80 nanograms per deciliter. I think it's important to look at vitamin D in the context of RBC magnesium, so the magnesium in the red blood cell, and to go by that. So
But what do you think about Adams saying that all the tests are done in the serum? It's in the wrong place. They're looking in the wrong place.
With vitamin D?
With vitamin D, he's saying we need to look into the fat to find the vitamin D.
I think that's accurate. Yeah. I think most tests, they're looking in the wrong place. You know, the more
Probably.
it's like iron, they're looking in the ferritin instead of in the macrophages. And then you
Yeah.
know, magnesium, they're looking in the serum and not. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. But, yeah, I'm with Morley that I think magnesium is more important. I don't think you really have to worry about vitamin D as long as you're getting outside uncovered for part of the day.
Yeah, I know Jennifer Daniels talks about like you got to have, because your liver can only make so much vitamin D and not all of it, and so what you need is cholesterol. But then I've heard Jack Cruz talk about how like EMF and non-native EMF is affecting our body's ability to create vitamin D from the sun. So it's like you know, it's just, I don't know, go out there and love your life, you know.
Well, it's the liver mainly, right? Is it the liver that synthesizes D, I believe?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. So I'm going back to Lipofuscin. I mean, I would bet that's a big part of
you know what? You fix your liver, right? And then, it seems to me like if you fix your liver, that's going to be directly available to vitamin D3 or vitamin D production. And then you clear it of chemicals and PUFA. And I bet you then by going in the sun, you're going to make all the, you know, eating enough cholesterol, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not a bad idea to find, you know, relatively EMF-free area. I don't doubt that, you know, being in a congested city decreases your ability to absorb the light. I wouldn't be surprised.
Matt, you're having a ripple effect because you're influencing influencers. That's cool.
Oh,
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I listen to your stuff all the time. However, Dave Stetzer is against grounding devices. What are the problems if the ground is not hot or floating? What does that mean? What are the problems? So grounding is context, right?
Yeah,
I think I
understand what they mean. Like, maybe is it bad to ground in an area that's out of the major city or something like that?
Is it bad to ground? So if you're in the middle of the woods, would you ground?
That would be pretty safe. I remember Dave Stetzer in my interview with him. He was saying, even in rural areas. I mean, when I moved to my cabin, I measured the dirty electricity, you know, coming off the wiring on the grid.
Yeah.
It was high. It was close to 500. It was like between 400 and 500 gram Stetzer units. So, yeah, I think grounding can cause prostate cancer if you're not aware of where you're grounding. So, I like Dave. He talks about the aluminum foil.
I just ground to the wall, though. That's what I do.
The wall?
Just kidding.
Oh, directly to the wire?
Yeah, I just go to the third prong. Everything's fine.
Fork. Yeah.
No, but yeah. So Stetzer, I heard about that a long time ago about the tinfoil.
Yeah, you just discharge for a minute. I have a lot of friends doing that now.
I do. You know, we do that with our kids.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do it right before they go to bed.
Yeah, I should probably do that. I guess I just trust in the Magnetico so much. You know, I've been sleeping on that thing for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, so, yeah. You have a 20 gauss or 10?
20, yeah.
Yeah, that's the way to go.
And I might even my bed setup's getting so elaborate. That's something I wanted to talk about. So,
let's talk about.
Have you heard of the Samita bed?
I have, yeah.
So I'm not getting that one, but I'm getting one like it, and this is one I'm moving, and so I'm gonna stack the 20 gauss with that style bed. They're made in Canada. I can't remember the name.
I want to get the name before you, or I'll get it with you. Yeah.
And then a chili pad, which I just got.
Yeah, those things are a game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially in the summer, right? So you have the Magnetico, okay, and the chili pad. We have that too, but not this new bed.
Yeah, and the new bed, it has slats that work with your spine. So they've said it actually relieves and prevents back pain, because whether you sleep on your side or your back, it's a perfect conforming.
I've seen the videos for what you're talking about. It's not the Samina, right? It's different.
Yeah, I can't remember the name, but they're up in Canada, and
yeah.
I'm gonna document it. So I'll share it. But.
Would you ever go double up on the Magnetico and have like 30 gauss or something?
I think he said, Dean Bonley was saying you can't do that because the way they're made, like the configuration, because I think it would. But I think they can do custom, more powerful ones. I'm just afraid to ask the price because it probably goes up substantially. You know,
Dean is he's one of 4 people in the world that has one of these like 4,000 pound magnets. Have you heard about this thing?
Well, he told me the story of, because I had a friend with TBI, traumatic brain injury, and she went to his, he had that place in Arizona. It was like a Magnosphere or something. It was like an X-Men room.
Yeah.
And there was like literally pull cars from across the street when they'd switched it on.
Wow.
And she said it gave her huge relief for her brain injury.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. But he was saying you could heal, it's like X-Men, Wolverine, you could heal a broken bone in like 6 hours or something insane, or less, maybe 4 hours.
That's crazy.
Like heavy magnetism. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. All right, let's see a couple more. What makes Shilajit different from ionic trace minerals?
It's a good question. So ionic trace minerals is basically, it's an extract. So I used to take fulvic acid extracts.
Okay.
And I started with like Earthshift, Casares. I think that was the first fulvic I've ever had.
Okay.
Now it's OGO or whatever.
Yeah.
Then there's different companies selling the fulvic acid, trace minerals, and then I discovered Shilajit, which is it's basically a whole food supplement. So when you get, I don't know if they're referring to like concentrates, like ionic trace minerals, like the blue bottle.
Yeah.
That's one thing. And then there's also companies making like basically a Shilajit liquid fulvic extract.
Okay.
And there's one study I found with isolated fulvic showing that it dissolved the bones of rats or mice. It was like not a good effect.
Wow.
And so I just opt for either like a distilled water tincture of Shilajit, powdered extract, which they use RO water and extract it from the resin. Okay. Or, the resin, which is
the actual
you have to
resin.
chip it out, or I like the tablets because you don't have to chip it out with
a
chisel. So I guess my answer to that would be that Shilajit's more whole food and that it's safer.
Okay.
It's not a super extract because there's components we don't even know. Just like oregano and royal jelly, there's a percentage of Shilajit. We have no idea what it is.
Yeah.
It's like 5 to 10%. We have no idea what's in there.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Thing.
Which is crazy, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do another one here. Let's see. If vegan diets are not ideal, Matt, if vegan diets are not ideal, what about Adam Bergstrom? He's a vegan and has been for a long time. Is Adam vegan?
He actually eats eggs. He eats eggs at night, with the solar timing. And
I know he said recently that he's not eating as much meat. Is he eating no meat at all?
In one interview, he told me he eats meat like once a year.
Really? Yeah, he used to eat a lot of meat. I wonder why he doesn't do that.
I think he got me big on the potatoes, and I just got a convection oven. I've been obsessed.
Yeah.
Like butter and white potatoes. I'm in heaven.
Is it true what he says? Can you taste the difference between dextrinizing and versus just regular cooked potatoes?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, it's subtle, but there is that thing, Pete talks about it as well, but I'm sure you've heard like the keto acids in the potato. I think it's in orange juice as well.
Yeah.
And that combines with the ammonia in your system, and that will form essential amino acids.
Okay.
So those 8 essential amino acids.
Yeah. And
that's pretty cool. I do definitely feel strong and balanced and fueled up after I eat just potatoes. And, I'll have potatoes and bone broth. I think that's more of a balanced way to do it.
Yeah.
A cup of bone broth and some potatoes for a meal. But, the vegan, I think vegetarian is doable. It's just more difficult. But vegan, to me, at this point, is pretty much impossible. Just unless you're doing like kilos of royal jelly, but it's just not sustainable.
You could theoretically do it, but you're still like, if you were doing it in an optimal way, in the best environment, in the best time of your life, with no stress, and you're doing it absolutely ideal, which is almost like a godlike thing. But if you could do that, then I still think you would be overall not quite as vibrant as if you were doing some more animal-based products.
Yeah, the way I kind of just came back to the balance of not cutting out an entire food group.
Yeah, probably smart.
I've learned the hard way with like cutting out macronutrients. Trying to cut out carbs or whatever. I used to laugh at protein when I was vegan for years, and people were like, "Where do you get your protein?" And I almost got the shirt, And
yeah.
I used to say literally bananas have protein, and now I get it. It's there's different strengths of protein. And so I have fruitarian friends. I love them. They're great. I think fruitarians are on the right track, but they are missing Shilajit because they are getting some inorganic minerals. And
amino acids, massive, right?
Amino acids, yeah.
Yeah.
Bee bread's a really good option. So like fermenting raw honey with pollen. And
Okay.
and that's what the bees do naturally. And that's a great protein source, but it still doesn't compare to like royal jelly, which the queen bee eats. So
Yeah.
it's just, making it practical.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. All right, let's do another one here. Someone's surprised at how long we've been going, dude. We've been going a long time. So we'll get you out of here. If you live in the north, shouldn't you eat only fruit when it is in season?
If you live in the north, shouldn't you only eat fruit when it's in season?
Don't eat a banana in New York in the middle of winter, as Jack says.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think I'm going to be growing a lot of potatoes up there. And so I think root vegetables are made. But, I mean, I think there is some mythology about going low carb in the winter.
Okay.
And Ray Pete's talked about that, how we actually we need higher carbs in the winter to support the thyroid with all the increased stress with the temperature shift.
Depending on, I guess if you're the more stressed, the higher north you go, or more south, right?
Yeah. I think being at the equator, you could pretty much be a fruitarian most of the time.
Right? Probably thrive.
But yeah, I generally agree with that. I've gone long bouts of just using honey instead of fruit, and I think it's a literal replacement for fruit just to have honey, especially blended into milk. That's like perfect.
It's funny. I see your I don't know what it is, the deep programming we've had about sugar, but I see your stories and I'm like, dude, I could never do that much sugar. Like, I don't even want to do that much sugar. And I just think like, wow, that's a lot. But you know what? It's like you said, it's coming from a natural source. I mean, but then again, you have Adam Bergstrom who's doing 5 pounds of white cane sugar a month. Like, how's he doing that?
Yeah, I think protein is a big context. Like I'm Josh Rubin's friend, East West Healing, awesome guy, great work. And his big thing with his clients is carbs and protein with every meal.
Carbs and protein with every meal.
And if you just have one or the other, it's imbalanced. So
okay. Because you wouldn't find that in nature, an imbalance like that, right?
Yeah. So a piece of toast and an egg,
okay.
Something like that, or a piece of fruit and bone broth.
Okay.
And I do feel the difference when I combine them versus just having one or the other. And it's kind of like Adam Bergstrom says, like, caffeine is the accelerator and sugar is the brakes.
Yeah, it's so opposite, right? That's so funny. Let's do a couple more here. Yeah. Tiki wants to know, would you please tell us about Matt's background? I think we did quite a bit of that, right, at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I could just say I went to community college for like 6 or 7 years, dropped out because I was obsessed with video games, role-playing games.
That's cool.
And then eventually found nutrition and, studied psychology for 5 years, went to a private university, wasted a lot of money. I'm still in debt. Did the stupid student debt thing.
Wow, did you really?
Yeah, but
wow.
My family kind of pushed me into it, but the good thing is I ended up at a accredited online school where it was discussion board based, and I really think this is the future of education, where it's not just memorization, but it was a really intense, like I would spend 10 hours every Monday writing a huge paper. And then throughout the week, the rest of the week, I would, make posts and then respond to posts.
Interesting. Okay.
So it was more of like creative writing,
right.
More of like discussion based. And I did learn a lot. Like I literally wrote papers on bloodletting and hydrotherapy,
leeches,
minerals. Yeah. So it was cool. And I graduated with a bachelor's of arts in complementary and alternative health. But people always ask me, like, how do you know all this stuff? What did you go to school? And it's like, a lot of school was waste of time for me, unfortunately, but I did get some bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And I think I learned how to be a better writer. And
in school,
my mom, she's actually was an author, and she was like in the middle of writing a book when I was growing up.
No
and so
way.
I think she planted the seeds of like gardening and writing, and I was always really good at English and grammar.
Yeah.
And so I really like to write, and Yeah, I think to convey these ideas, especially connecting the dots and complex things, you kind of have to use analogies and
Yeah.
be somewhat eloquent to get them across. So.
I think that's what's missing in a lot of education today. And I'm like, one of the best things I ever did is I didn't finish college, you know, because I think what's most important is being able to read, being able to write, you know, and being able to move people to take action and to be someone who influences other people with your words, and being able to change the course of people's behavior by your actions and your life and your passion for things. And school just completely squashes all of that. And they don't teach you how to be an influencer, someone who's passionate about something, speaks eloquently enough to convey ideas that get people to take action. I mean, you look at a guy like Martin Luther King. I mean, whatever you believe about that guy, you don't look at him and say, "Oh, I'm just bored listening to that guy." You know, and the way he learned how to do that wasn't through schooling.
Right.
Like it's something that you cultivate within, you know, and school just doesn't teach that.
It's a curiosity, I think. Yeah, I remember like the Truman Show, where it's like, it's already all been explored, Truman. There's nowhere else to discover.
Right?
You know, it's like,
gosh, nothing could be further from the truth.
Right.
Yeah, you and I just go down rabbit trails of everything, you know.
But yeah, there's like Khan Academy online. That's a good website where you can, you know, get free courses. But it's a little tricky, because if you try to learn through Google, there's the search engine optimization, and you can't really trust. Like, you'll get taken down what Google wants to teach you.
Right.
You know, and so, you know, I think going to a library or maybe using a browser that's a little better or something. But you kind of, it's a way of thinking, I think, while you're researching. And I guess that's something that I haven't lost since I started this whole journey, is just, it's a way of thinking and of seeking knowledge and the truth.
Right. Above all else. And being able to convey that as you're learning it. But then, you know, none of these skills are really taught in school, you know.
Right.
It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah. It's kind of like critical thinking. I guess that's the word for it.
That was probably the most beneficial course that I took in college, because it allows me to structure and to bring ideas into a framework where then you can sort of take out the pieces and figure out which part of this is faulty.
Yeah.
And looking and decide which rabbit trail to go down. And, you know, I don't see a lot of that in today's world.
Yeah. For me, it's become about priorities and just like, okay, what can I most apply? You know, because I've got so wound up about all these conspiracies, and whether they're true or not, it's like,
they're fun,
applicable to my life.
Yeah, they're super fun. But at the end of the day, like, what's going to be something that's actually going to move the needle for you, you know, and change your life. All right, so what time are you going to go meet your friend?
How many more questions?
It's just goes on and on. So it's up to you. I have to, let's see, I'm going to go home and have some beef and eggs.
I guess we'll just have to do another one, or you can come on my show and we can answer questions.
Yeah, whatever. What time are you going to meet your friend?
I didn't really set the time, but
how much more do you want to go? We can stop now if you want.
Do like 5 more questions, maybe?
Sure. I should stop butting in, because there are questions for you, and it's like we get talking. All right. Thank you, Justin and Matt. Completely enjoyed the interview. Let's make sure here real quick. Okay, so we'll try to take a couple more questions. School is a scam. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, put them in all caps if possible. You are a realist. I love it. Okay, that's cool. Awesome. I feel so silly that I got a graduate degree. School is a scam. I'm trying to find all the questions. Okay. Just trying to go through here. It's a lot of coming. Okay. Yeah. ALA, Jerry Tennant. Have you used fulvic acid and other acid? I forgot. Electrocuted yourself to regrow anything or heal at all? Is he talking about...
I forgot to mention vitamin E increases the conversion of ALA into saturated fat. So that's another little bullet point.
Say that again?
Vitamin E will increase the conversion of ALA to saturated fat. So the omega-6 too.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I guess it could be omega-3 and omega-6, but alpha-linolenic or alpha-linoleic.
ALA, yeah. Do you stand on the tinfoil barefoot, or can you wear socks to discharge?
If they're wool socks, if they're slightly sweaty, yes. But I would just do barefoot to be safe.
Yeah.
To make sure you're doing it.
Because it's really about the voltage, and the grounding thing it's a challenge. It's a challenging thing because I forget how it's described, but the discharging is what's most important, right?
Yeah, he was saying, Dave Stetzer was saying that these grounding studies, the Earthing Institute is the big one, and I studied it. I had all the indoor earthing tools. I was always grounded, even indoors, directly raw to earth. But he was saying they could have gotten those same benefits, Tour de France riders, just with discharging instead of so it's really we really just need to be barefoot for a minute instead of barefoot all day or grounded all day.
Right.
And people would say well, that's not natural. I mean, we used to have moccasins and leather shoes, but we didn't used to have, like Dave said, I think it's 70% of the energy returns to the transfer station from your house via the earth. So when it comes from the station, all the electrons to your house, it returns via the ground. And so as it's traveling through the ground, it's adding all that to the wires.
Yeah.
Or directly to the earth or the ground. So it's coming up.
One thing that I can't understand about Stetzer and what he says is he says that, or no, it's not Stetzer. It's Dan Millman's a author. What's the guy who wrote the book that Stetzer always talks about? Anyway, I forgot what his name is. Anyway, he was talking about how he's never seen a place in the world that doesn't have dirty electricity or stray voltage in the ground.
Whoa.
And he was saying even in Europe, everywhere, because the guy asked about DC, currents in Europe versus AC here. Mm-hmm. And, but I mean, a guy would have to test the entire planet to know that. I mean, I don't think you can know that,
I agree. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure in the Himalayas too, or Siberian mountains, it's pretty.
You're probably pretty safe to ground, I'd say.
Collecting some Shilajit.
Yeah, right. All right, let's see if we can get one more, and then we'll call it an evening.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so here's a good question. What do you think about A1 versus A2 milk? Do you think there's anything to it?
I think there's something to it. Yeah, it's. I always opt for the Jersey cow milk, but if I can, even going beyond bovine, I'll go to goat's milk because the proteins are smaller. I believe there's more lactase enzyme and there's more selenium, just overall more nutritious and easier to digest.
Okay.
But I do notice I get more acne. I've completely broken out doing I think it was Organic Pastures, the California brand.
Yeah.
Pretty sure that was A1 versus Claravale Farms A2 milk.
Interesting.
It's in glass and twice the price.
Yeah. Twice the price of Organic Pastures?
Easily, yeah.
Whoa.
Because they sell a quart for, I think it's $7 or something. So, 7 times 4 was at 28 bucks versus 14 a gallon for Organic Pastures. Yeah.
Hey, what are your thoughts on carbon 60? You mentioned that Shilajit has it, right?
Yeah, I think I'm skeptical about taking it, and I think it's only based off that one study, right? By that guy. I was taking it for a while. The 90% lifespan increase is pretty exciting, but I would rather get it from a natural source like Shilajit versus, an avocado oil or olive oil.
Yeah.
But I was taking that consistently for a while. It's one of those supplements where you don't really feel it. And so it gets a little tricky, because it's something that increases your lifespan 90%. How are you really going to feel that?
Yeah.
It's going to be a long time. So with Shilajit.
It's interesting though, right? I mean, it's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
The magnetic discharge of that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's D-alpha benzopyrones, I believe that's how you say it.
Wow.
DPBs and Shilajit. It's there's so many different components of Shilajit. It's really cool. I would just rather take more whole food supplements instead of extracts. So.
Yeah. All right. So there's a ton more questions, but I wanna give Matt an opportunity here to just talk about everything he's got going on and his website, and so guys, if you can, I'd appreciate if you can support people out there that are doing good work, people out there that are that are really trying to help people. And this is why I like supporting you and what you do, Matt. This is why we have your enzymes in our store. I just think it's really important because there is a concerted effort to sort of coagulate or bring together all the different media outlets, and you have all these different places where you can get information now. And I think it's really important to support people that are doing good work, and people that you like, because that's how they're going to stay in business. That's how Matt's going to stay in business. That's how we're going to keep doing shows. And so, Matt, just share a little bit about so you have this new product coming out that we talked about, and you have a ton going on, right?
Yeah, thank you, by the way. I appreciate that a lot. And yeah, I fully agree. Most of the companies that I promote on my website, at least half of them are small businesses where I've actually met face-to-face the owners.
Right,
and
yeah.
that's so important to me.
Yeah.
Companies that have under 10,000 followers or whatever, it's like,
yeah,
those are the ones that I like to support. So, yeah, what was your
well, you've got your podcast, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, all the different outlets.
Yeah, just the things that you're doing. Instagram, which is really beneficial. And
yeah, so I have the podcast going on. It's Mito Life Radio. I have my YouTube channel, which is just Matt Blackburn, and my podcast episodes are uploaded there. And I also do some videos, like I did an unboxing of the Under Counter Pristine Hydro Filter, which it's amazing. And then I did a whole one on the magnesium bicarbonate. So I'll do videos. I'll start doing those more. I'm going to do some product review videos, a lot more of just all the things on my website, and just quick ones, 3-minute why I use them, how I use them.
Yeah.
So podcast once a week, every Friday I have a new episode. I might increase the frequency with that.
I wouldn't promise it. I wouldn't, because it's so much work. But
right. Yeah, at least every Friday.
I'd love to. Yeah, I'd listen to them.
Appreciate. Yeah, tomorrow I have one with Talia Cruz coming out on vaccinations, and that one was amazing. Talia's awesome. I love her, and she's just she's so controversial like me. Like, she doesn't care.
Yeah.
What people think, and it's great.
Wow.
And just a lot of, and I did like a 25-minute rant on vaccines of just my thoughts at the end, which is kind of fun. So, so that new episode released every Friday. The YouTube, mostly on Instagram, so you can find me at Matt Blackburn on Instagram. And I do stories, as Justin said, every day. That's probably the most of what I post. And you were saying I could probably make my stories into YouTube videos, because some of them are long-winded.
Yeah.
It'd be like this huge rant.
Yeah,
like
totally.
30 stories.
I look at the line dots and I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I have like highlights on resveratrol, which is just as it is like omega-3s. Like, it's not. Don't believe. What was the guy that was just on Joe Rogan? Sinclair. Promotes resveratrol. Yeah, because it's not good for longevity, but that's another story. Niacinamide has the opposite effect, and it's better for longevity. So, and it's cheaper than nicotinamide riboside that people are taking. So, anyway, tangent. So Instagram.
Dude, we could go for hours. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you're doing a lot of cool stuff. Are you on Facebook too?
Facebook, yeah, and I'll usually post the same posts. I usually post once a day on Instagram and Facebook. I'll take a day off, just to be a human. No, I'm always a human.
Yeah.
To just unwind.
Not be on there every day.
I will say, if you have to be on social media for your job, just a fun little practical tip for you guys. Sota Biotuner, look that up. That's changed my life because it like what we're doing, it does cause brain damage, even though we're helping people.
Yeah.
And so I hooked these electrodes to my earlobes, and it's harmonics of 111 hertz, and it's a electrostim for the brain. But it was developed by Bob Beck.
Yeah.
And it was first used in China by Dr. Wen in the 70s to get people off heroin. They found just by chance in under a week, just with using. And so social media has a similar addiction to heroin and hard drugs, as we talked about. But just wanted to throw that in there, because I do 20 to 40 minutes a day of that, as well as I shoot for 2 hours a week of nature, minimum.
Got to have that.
Yeah. So,
get outside more, definitely.
Yeah, and then my website's mitolife.co, and that's my product. And then my website's matt-blackburn.com. And so that's kind of like the hub. If you want to see my Amazon store, my brand, my podcast,
everything's
and
on
all
there.
My recommended products.
And your blog as well.
my blog, yeah, and I'll be more consistent with that. I'm just a little bit in flux, so.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of effort to write a blog, you know, a big, long article. It does take a lot of time.
I put my heart into it. Yeah, I put on some classical music. I like Spotify Discover Weekly. Yeah. And it's fun because it's hard to find good music. And so
that's so cool.
It'll kind of, the AI chooses what I should listen to.
Yeah, totally.
Sophia.
All right, guys. Well, if you guys enjoyed this show, share it with your friends. I'd appreciate that. If you guys want to support our work, you can go to biochargeme.com, and that's where our store lives. We've got Matt's products there, or just go to Matt and buy them directly from him. That's cool too. That way it keeps both of us in business. And anything else, stay tuned for more shows coming up. Gosh, we're at 2 shows a week right now. We're going to be adding a 3rd possibly. So, it's awesome, but it's a lot of work. But I like having a body of work out there, though.
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool.
And I just thought, too, let's make a discount code for your listeners just for the show. That hear
cool. Okay.
So let's do EHR. Oh, wait, Extreme Health Radio, EHR 25. And we'll do 25% off.
Whoa. Dude, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, one-time use. Just if someone listens and your interest was piqued. And so the vitamin E, I think it's going to go live tomorrow. So I've had some delays, but it's just, getting the shipping set up and stuff. It's a headache. But yeah, I would just check mitolife.co tomorrow and then EHR 25.
Oh, dude, that's cool.
Use.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
You.
Yeah,
thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. So we'll have to do it again. Hopefully we can do it again before you leave.
That would be awesome.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. It's always so much fun. And as you said, we can talk for hours.
Dude, this is 3 hours, man. I think your show with Adam was longer, wasn't it?
I think it was like 3 hours and 20 years.
That's crazy. All right, guys. Thanks so much for your listenership and your support over the years. I really appreciate that a lot. It's what keeps both of us going, and it's super, super important. So thank you guys all so much, and stay tuned, and we'll see you on the next episode.